Welcome to my channel. In my channel, you can watch various type of fiction and fantasy audiobook. If you want more video like this, please subscribe my channel.
High School DxD, 3 Years of Cohabitation. Part 2. The claw was so fast its trajectory was completely invisible as it swiped directly at Father Fried Selzen. No. Father Fried Selzen only had time to let out an unwilling roar before he was crushed into a mist of blood in midair. Asia Argento lay unconscious, slumped on the ground. Luo Yu looked down at the unconscious girl before him, a strange expression on his face. She wasn't very old, but she was quite well developed. He hadn't expected to run into her in heaven. Is she here to receive Michael's baptism, or to sign a contract with a divine or holy beast? At a certain stage, the younger generation of the church would be summoned to heaven by Michael, either to receive a baptism or to form a contract with a divine or holy beast. This was the seventh heaven, which happened to be where the divine and holy beasts roamed. She was likely here to sign a contract, which was the same concept as the devil's familiar forest. So, seeing Asia Argento and Father Fried Selzen appear in heaven didn't really surprise Luo Yu. Father Fried Selzen hadn't defected yet. At this time, he was still a top exorcist directly under the church, qualified to be summoned to heaven. Under the healing of the holy light spell, the unicorn cub's injuries had improved significantly. It ran to Asia Argento's side and licked her face with its tongue. Then, just as Asia Argento had protected it earlier, the little creature used its even smaller body to shield her, staring straight at Luo Yu's over 30 jong long holy light dragon form. A hint of surprise flashed in Luo Yu's eyes. A golden magic circle lit up beneath the unicorn cub's feet, and it then completely merged into Asia Argento's body, disappearing from sight. A holy beast contract. Luo Yu hadn't expected that his appearance would actually facilitate Asia Argento's contract with this holy beast. The divine and holy beasts of heaven were not as easygoing as those in the familiar forest, each and every one of them had ridiculously high standards. The church might not produce such a lucky person once in several years. Judging by the situation just now, if he hadn't suddenly appeared and killed Father Fried Selzen, that guy would have beaten the unicorn cub to death. Luo Yu glanced at the unicorn cub, which was still full of vigilance, then spread his sky-blotting wings and flew off toward the mirror lake of light. His time was tight, he had no time to waste here. A few minutes later, Asia Argento slowly woke up, her eyes dazed as she looked around and saw the unicorn cub constantly nuzzling her. She remembered being thrown by Father Fried earlier and crashing into a massive shadow. Before she could get a clear look, she had fainted. Where was Father Fried? The seventh heaven was very lively today. Luo Yu's massive body was concealed within the clouds, giving him a clear view of everything below. Priests, nuns, and exorcists from the church were everywhere, running around in search of divine and holy beasts suitable for them. There were also quite a few angels patrolling back and forth, keeping an eye on the surroundings. It was unclear whether it was because of the commotion Luo Yu had caused earlier, or because this batch of young people from the church had arrived. There were even more people at the mirror lake of light. In the seventh heaven, most of the powerful divine and holy beasts gathered around the mirror lake of light, so the young people of the church naturally wouldn't miss this place. If they were lucky, they might be able to sign a contract with a divine or holy beast here. That would give them the ultimate backer for the rest of their lives. Luo Yu even saw a young holy light dragon with several fawning young priests following closely behind it. With a loud boom, Luo Yu landed on the shore of the mirror lake of light, and the surrounding people quickly scrambled out of the way in awe. Looking at this colossal body, it had to be a Mao-class holy light dragon. They were in no way qualified to contract such a creature. Ignoring the gazes around him, Luo Yu dove straight into the mirror lake of light, rushing toward its depths. At this point, trying to sneak into the lake secretly was impossible, and acting hesitantly would only arouse suspicion. After breaking through to the Mao class, he found that the dense light elements in the lake water no longer affected him. Back when he was still an ultimate class devil, he had to endure the corrosion of the light elements, but now it was completely different. Under Diedrag's guidance, Luo Yu quickly reached the deepest part of the lake bed. The concentration of light elements in this place was beyond words. Even with his current Mao class strength, taking a single gulp would be rough. Oh, what do we have here? A fake dragon of holy light. A voice, so cold it seemed capable of corroding the soul, suddenly rang out in Luo Yu's ears. Luo Yu looked toward the source of the voice. Inside a deep trench several hundred jong wide lay a dark black, serpentine, three-eyed dragon several times larger than him. Its body was covered in tightly packed black scales, with corrosive black mist swirling around them. The light elements at the bottom of the lake were terrifyingly dense, yet the moment they touched the black mist, they were devoured, turning black and dissolving into dark water. However, the dragon's body appeared somewhat translucent. It was a dragon soul, not a physical entity. Even so, it was pinned down tightly by over 20 thick holy chains that pierced through its body, binding it to the spot. Luo Yu's face darkened as he spoke the true name of the dragon before him. The primordial dragon of darkness, Apophis. This evil dragon was said to be able to swallow and corrode all matter with its black water, and it was a genuine heavenly dragon-class entity. In other words, a super devil. Luo Yu had previously guessed that the old acquaintance Didrag mentioned would be a high-ranking evil dragon. After all, only evil dragons would be sealed in heaven. However, the heavenly dragon-class origin dragon soul before him was far more formidable than he had imagined. At this, Luo Yu's eyes lit up. If he could use a heavenly dragon-class origin dragon soul to complete the second step of his dragon reincarnation, his potential and foundation would absolutely skyrocket. Kid, your gaze is highly annoying. For a human brat to dare view it as prey was simply suicidal. Apophis, long time no see. I see you still have that disgusting black water of yours. Didrag's majestic voice echoed out of thin air. Quote. Hey. Apophis was stunned for a moment, his dragon eyes narrowing. Didrag, is this brat your host? After all these years, your taste in choosing people has only gotten worse. Do you think that by using alchemy to stuff a soul into the bones of a holy light dragon, he can truly become a dragon? He had seen far too many of these human tricks in ancient times. In the end, all of those people rotted away in their decaying shells, dying in agonizing pain. Didrag sneered. Apophis, after being locked up for so long, has your eyesight gone bad too? Can't you see how perfectly compatible this holy light dragon body is with my partner? Only then did Apophis notice that the compatibility between the human kid before him and the holy light dragon was almost unbelievably perfect. It was as if this dragon body had grown from him naturally. Suddenly, a term flashed in his mind. Devil reincarnation. The reincarnation method created by that guy. He had been sealed beneath heaven for so many years, trapped here since before the Great War, but he was not entirely ignorant of the outside world. It seems you remember, Didrag said with a hint of pride in his voice. My current host and I used devil reincarnation to develop dragon reincarnation. It can perfectly transform other races into dragons. Although Luo Yu's intellect and experimentation deserved most of the credit, Didrag knew very well that without his own guidance as a heavenly dragon, Luo Yu's theories and hypotheses regarding dragon species would never have succeeded. Luo Yu stared at Apophis as if looking at a piece of merchandise. The body needs to be refined with essence blood, and the soul must be filled with a dragon soul. Today, I'll borrow your origin dragon soul to help me complete the dragon reincarnation. Apophis's dragon eyes instantly turned icy cold, and killing intent surged. Even the creator god had never dared to target his origin dragon soul, yet Didrag and this human brat had the audacity. Didrag, do you think just because I'm sealed here, you can push me around? As soon as he finished speaking, the black water surged forth, carrying a power capable of corroding and swallowing everything as it lunged at Luo Yu. Apophis, if you were still in your prime, I would turn around and run without a second thought. But unfortunately, your origin dragon soul is locked down along with your body. I'm quite curious to see how much strength you can squeeze out now. Luo Yu opened his mouth, and a holy dragon breath blasted forward like an aurora. At the bottom of the mirror lake of light, the light elements were as dense as water. The power of Luo Yu's dragon breath was amplified several times over. Conversely, Apophis's black water was heavily suppressed. Boom! A dull, massive explosion erupted at the bottom of the lake. The black water was violently blown apart, and the holy dragon breath slammed squarely into Apophis. That piece of garbage creator god. Apophis glared fiercely at the chains on his body. If not for this thing, he would have torn this human brat to shreds long ago. End this quickly, Luo Yu. Your current attacks can't hurt Apophis at all. Don't forget we're here to take it, not to destroy it. If the commotion is too big and attracts the seraphs, it will be troublesome. Luo Yu nodded and directly summoned the boosted gear. A layer of dark red armor quickly wrapped around the left arm of his holy light dragon form. In the very center of the armor was embedded an emerald green gem. The appearance of this sacred gear would automatically change according to the host state. Balance breaker. Luo Yu unleashed his balance breaker without hesitation. Emerald green light instantly burst forth. In the next second, his appearance began to change drastically. His original over 30 zhong body expanded frantically, surging to over 50 zhong in just a few seconds. His size was now almost as large as Apophis's. His pure white scales and the wings on his back were all dyed deep red. The flames originally wrapping around his limbs also transformed into the Crimson Emperor flame, capable of incinerating all of creation. Behind him, 9 massive Crimson Dragon holy swords also materialized out of thin air. This was his primary means of slaughter. At this moment, Luo Yu's aura directly skyrocketed to the peak of the Super Devil King class. In heaven, within the temple of the 8th heaven, Michael and Raphael sat facing each other, discussing the baptisms of the church's younger generation. Suddenly, both of them sensed a powerful dragon pressure at the same time. This aura was both familiar and somewhat foreign. It even brought with it a sense of oppression. This is the Red Dragon Emperor's dragon pressure. Raphael flared up on the spot. He dares to come to heaven again. Does he really think our heaven is his back garden? Even Michael, who was famous throughout the 3 realms for his good temper, had a flash of displeasure in his eyes. No one would be happy about their home being broken into repeatedly. Immediately after, Michael's face changed. Oh no, the Red Dragon Emperor is at the bottom of the Mirror Lake of Light. The primordial dragon of darkness, Apophis, is sealed there. He wants to break the seal. Without needing Michael to say another word, Raphael spread his wings and rushed directly toward the Mirror Lake of Light in the 7th heaven. Michael, who remained in the temple, immediately contacted Gabriel and Uriel, asking these 2 seraphs to also rush over and support Raphael. They had to stop the Red Dragon Emperor from destroying Apophis's seal. If the primordial dragon of darkness really broke free, it would absolutely be a major catastrophe for heaven. After all, the current heaven had no super devil class powerhouses at all. There was also one more thing that concerned Michael. The aura on the Red Dragon Emperor was completely different from when he had broken into heaven last time. Last time, I could still sense a human aura. Now, it is purely the aura of a dragon species. But how is that possible? Above the Mirror Lake of Light, angels were gathering in increasing numbers. The younger generation of the church stood by the lake, their faces full of confusion. What is happening to the heaven system? With such a commotion, could it be that devils or fallen angels have invaded? Many people couldn't help but wonder. Hurry up, brother. The seraphs are arriving soon, and it will be troublesome once they do. Diedreg's voice exploded in Luo Yu's mind. Luo Yu didn't waste words and responded with action. His holy dragon breath pressed down like a wall, firmly blocking the black water spewed out by Apophis. Although that black water was suppressed, it would still be lethal if it touched anything. Luo Yu lunged forward, and before Apophis could react, he stomped on its dragon head. Bang! The dragon head was brutally driven into the mud at the bottom of the lake. 5 crimson dragon holy swords flew out simultaneously, precisely piercing into Apophis's source dragon soul. Although it couldn't harm it, it was enough to immobilize it. You lowly ant! Apophis roared in anger. As a dignified ancient existence, it was actually being stepped on by a guy at the Mao class. This was simply the greatest humiliation of its life. Apophis, behave yourself. Can't you tell? I'm helping you break the seal. Bullshit, you human brat. Apophis gritted its teeth. There were 2 layers of seals on its body. One was left by Michael, with those chains piercing through its dragon soul, locking it beneath the Mirror Lake of Light. The other layer was the truly lethal one, hidden deep within the dragon's soul, runes carved by the god of destruction himself. This human brat was merely destroying Michael's sealing chains. The god of destruction's runes remained untouched. This guy clearly intended to capture it and use it as a sacrifice for dragon reincarnation. Break. In no time at all the sealing chains laid out by Michael shattered completely. Countless angels had gathered above the Mirror Lake of Light, and even 3 seraphs had arrived, ready to break through the lake surface and attack at any moment. Collect. Luo Yu pressed his massive dragon claw onto Apophis. A black hole-like vortex suddenly appeared in the center of the claw. Apophis twisted its body frantically, struggling. But it couldn't withstand the suction of the vortex. It roared while shrinking, and finally, it was sucked directly into the vortex. Done. Luo Yu grinned. Risking being besieged by the heaven system, he had finally obtained the source dragon soul of the primordial dragon of darkness, Apophis. Being able to do this so smoothly was thanks to the sealing runes left by the god of destruction. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to crush it so easily, and this source dragon soul wouldn't have been obtained so effortlessly. Above the mirror lake of light, the angelic army blotted out the sky. Battle angels with 3 wings or more were densely packed. Any one of them pulled out would be no weaker than a high-class devil. There were as many as 10 angelic commanders at the 5-wing level. Plus, the 3 seraphs, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael, were personally presiding over the scene. The heaven system's grand formation had been deployed, blocking layer upon layer, all to prevent the primordial dragon of darkness Apophis from escaping. Against such a lineup, even an ordinary super devil would have a hard time breaking through. In the center of Luo Yu's dragon claw, the depths of the vortex connected to the internal space of the boosted gear. D-Drake's dragon soul was there. With that guy around, he could perfectly stabilize and suppress the object. They're really giving me face. Apart from Michael, who has to watch over the heaven system, all the remaining seraphs have come. Luo Yu looked through the lake surface at the sea of white angelic troops above the mirror lake of light. Breaking out now would be a bit troublesome. The lake surface exploded. With a loud roar, a 100-foot wave of water surged into the sky. A massive dragon shadow shot up from the bottom of the lake and landed directly in the center of the angelic army. The dragon's might swept across in all directions, causing many angels to sway unsteadily. This is a dragon species. Raphael frowned, staring at the behemoth before him. The surrounding battle angels, while resisting the dragon's might, were full of confusion. They had clearly come to capture the Red Dragon Emperor, so why did a dragon suddenly appear? And it was a super devil king class dragon species at that. An existence on the same level as the archangels. That's not right. Uriel suddenly spoke up. He is the Red Dragon Emperor. There's no mistaking that aura on him. Transforming into this state must be related to his hunting of dragon species and seizing their essence blood over these years. Gabriel and Raphael were both stunned. That's right, they might mistake other things, but that aura could never be mistaken. Although there were significant changes and the human aura had completely vanished, perhaps it was really as Uriel said, the result of those dragon species' essence blood. Everyone, can you do me a favor and let me pass? Luo Yu spoke. I never intended to be an enemy of the heaven system. After transforming into the holy light dragon, combined with the fact that the boosted gear had achieved balance breaker, Luo Yu's voice naturally carried a heavy sense of majesty. Move aside. HMPH, Red Dragon Emperor, do you really think the heaven system is your backyard, to come and go as you please? Raphael was so angry his face turned green. In his eyes, this Red Dragon Emperor had broken into the heaven system time and again, a crime unforgivable, and he must face the judgment of the heaven system. Red Dragon Emperor, hand over the source dragon soul of the primordial dragon of darkness, Apophis, and surrender obediently. I, Gabriel, guarantee you that I will not take your life. Gabriel had a soft heart and was still trying to persuade him. Luo Yu sneered. Do you really think you can take me down? As soon as he finished speaking, a barbaric dragon's might exploded from him, sweeping in all directions. The young people from the church watching below couldn't withstand this pressure. It was as if a 1,000-pound boulder were pressing down on them. Their legs went weak, and they knelt directly to the ground. Watch out. Gabriel and the others were startled. No one expected the Red Dragon Emperor to strike so suddenly. Luo Yu's massive body instantly turned into a streak of light, rushing straight toward the left flank of the formation. He knew clearly that if he couldn't break the formation set up by these angels, he would have almost no chance of escaping. While talking just now, he had been observing, the left flank had the fewest angels, and although Raphael was a seraph, his specialty was healing and protection, making him the weakest among the 4 seraphs. Naturally, one should pick the softest persimmon to squeeze. In the blink of an eye, Luo Yu's massive figure appeared before Raphael, and a dragon claw wrapped in crimson emperor flame, carrying destructive power, slapped down fiercely. Holy shield protection. Raphael remained calm and immediately cast his strongest defensive divine art. A holy shield blocked in front of him. In his view, this was enough to block the Red Dragon Emperor's attack. But at this moment, a sharp glint flashed in Luo Yu's eyes. Gabriel's heart skipped a beat, but it was too late to warn Raphael. Boost. 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 D-Drake's voice became mechanical and cold. In an instant, Luo Yu's attack power soared several times over, and a terrifying aura that made the soul tremble quietly permeated the air. One could even see the space around that massive dragon claw twisting and blurring. A crisp cracking sound rang out. Oh no. Raphael's expression changed drastically, but at this moment, it was too late to either keep resisting or dodge. The holy shield protection was torn to shreds, and along with it, most of his right side was torn apart as well. A large amount of angel blood spilled from the sky like a rain of blood, staining this habitat of divine beasts and holy beasts on the seventh layer with a pungent smell of blood. Raphael fell to the ground, screaming. What pained him wasn't his torn body, but the fire burning on his wound. That fire was called Crimson Emperor Flame, and it burned as if it were attached to his soul. Raphael, Gabriel and Uriel's expressions changed completely. How could Luo Yu let this opportunity slip by? Taking advantage of the rift in the left flank of the angelic formation, he rushed straight toward the edge of the seventh layer. Uriel turned his head, wanting to pursue, when Michael's voice suddenly rang in his ear. Don't chase the Red Dragon Emperor, save Raphael first. What's burning on him is Dedrag's Crimson Emperor Flame. Once it's lit, it cannot be extinguished. Uriel gritted his teeth and nodded, watching helplessly as the Red Dragon Emperor's shadow disappeared into the horizon. This time, the heaven system had been thoroughly played. Kuo Town. Late at night. In the dilapidated park. With a boom, the ground shook violently. Luo Yu's massive body crashed out from a space channel, and the channel collapsed immediately. He reverted to human form, thinking to himself that this path to the heaven system was completely severed. His aura must have been targeted by the heaven system. The trick of posing as a holy light dragon wouldn't work anymore. He would have to find a new place to cultivate. However, obtaining Apophis's source dragon soul was worth it. Luo Yu reached out to tear open the barrier he had set up in the heaven system, having just stepped out with one leg. Era. Ah Yu, so you are a dragon species. The voice was charming and soft, yet it carried a chill. Luo Yu looked up to see a smiling girl standing before him. She was smiling, but she radiated a cold air. One look was enough to know she was in a very bad mood. Akino. The late night wind blew, carrying a chill. In the dilapidated park, Akino Himehima's face was half smiling, with a bit of a mischievous glint. Luo Yu felt guilty. He hadn't expected her to be waiting here. The barrier he had casually set up was fine for fooling ordinary people or mid-class devils, but Akino was a high-class devil and couldn't be stopped by it at all. Long time no see, Akino. Luo Yu braced himself and spoke first. Akino Himehima didn't speak, just stared at him. There was surprise in her eyes, but more resentment. Beside the park swing, two figures, one sitting, one standing. Akino Himehima sat on the rusted swing, holding a ball of lightning in her hand. Arcs of electricity crackled at her fingertips, and blue-white light danced across her fair skin. I thought you were going to say, nice to meet you, beautiful lady. Her lips curled into a smile, her voice hiding a hint of danger. I was ready to blast you with my lightning magic, but you, on the other hand, didn't even say hello. Luo Yu stood behind her, looking up at the old tree. This place brought back too many memories. Akino, my memories were sealed by your hypnosis before, I wasn't pretending. He sighed. The ground beneath his feet was still the same stone slab he had stepped on as a child, and the slide next to it had long since faded. As long as it's what you say, I believe it. Akino Himehima swayed the swing, her voice soft, as if returning to many years ago. You loved hearing me say that when you were little, didn't you? Your tone clearly says you don't believe it. Luo Yu shook his head. Then think about it yourself. Akino Himehima turned her head to look at him. If one day you suddenly discovered that the person you like had long become someone else's fiancé, could you still so easily say the words, I believe you? I could. Luo Yu answered decisively. Akino Himehima was stunned for a moment, then turned back, pouting angrily. You've learned to be bad, ah Yu. Now you're just like those bad women, lying every time you open your mouth. I really don't know anything about Sona. Luo Yu walked behind her and reached out to push the swing. The iron chains creaked, sounding a bit like those from their childhood. Akino Himehima did not speak again. The swing began to sway slowly. At that time, you were afraid I would be dragged into the affairs of gods and demons, Luo Yu said, so you sealed my memories. I didn't lie about that, I really did lose my memories for a while. Just a while. Akino Himehima murmured silently in her heart. Later, perhaps because Aunt Ruri's influence was too great, my sacred gear awakened. I just didn't notice it at the time. When the power of your hypnotic seal slowly dissipated, my memories returned. As for you seeing me turned into a dragon reincarnation now. It's similar to how you were reincarnated as a devil, only I turned into a dragon reincarnation. Akeno Himahima grabbed the swing chains abruptly, stopping her body. Dragon reincarnation is possible too. Her voice was full of shock. Just consider it a special property of my sacred gear. Akeno Himahima lay on the bed, feeling the force coming from her back, and didn't say a word. Luo Yu had already explained everything that could be said. As for the things that couldn't be said, it wasn't that he didn't want to tell her, but that saying them now would be completely useless. Nor was it something Akeno's small shoulders could bear. She remained silent for a long time. Luo Yu's hands massaged her back, the force moderate, the rhythm steady. Akeno suddenly realized that she didn't seem to have any right to blame Ayu. If one were to really start from the beginning, it was she who first sealed Ayu's memories, and she who first abandoned Ayu. Ayu had never abandoned her. Later, I even snuck into the underworld to see you at the Grimoire clan. Then why didn't you? Akeno Himahima turned back abruptly, but was interrupted before she could finish. Appearing by your side at that time would not have been a good thing for you. It's the same now. Luo Yu's eyes were very clear. Akeno looked at him and sighed softly. In the years you weren't by Akeno's side, Ayu must have experienced a lot. The resentment in her heart had mostly dissipated. With the misunderstanding cleared up, there was naturally nothing left to complain about. Looking at Ayu's eyes again, they were unnaturally mature and terrifyingly deep. She suddenly felt a bit of heartache. Growing up always comes with a price. Yeah, I've experienced quite a lot. Luo Yu's gaze slowly drifted away. He remembered the death of Akeno's mother, Aunt Ruri. He remembered the moment when the boosted gear fully awakened. He had killed devils, hacked at fallen angels, fought magical beasts, and beaten up monsters. He had snuck into the Norse pantheon and learned arcane magic. He had slaughtered the descendants of the demon kings. He had stormed the underworld. He had traveled the world looking for dragon reincarnations to fight and snatch their essence. He had wreaked havoc in heaven. One thing after another. It passed before his eyes like a movie, yet it felt as long as several decades. Long enough for an ordinary person to live a whole lifetime. 3 days later, a piece of news spread like wildfire among the major pantheons of the three realms. The Red Dragon Emperor broke into heaven alone and snatched the original dragon soul of the primeval dragon of darkness, Apophis. Everyone's first reaction upon hearing this was the same. Is this generation's Red Dragon Emperor out of his mind? It wasn't enough to provoke the Norse pantheon, the underworld, and various dragon reincarnations, now he even dares to mess with heaven. Is he tired of living? Also, what does he want with that dragon of darkness's original dragon soul? Besides being used to make sacred gears for fallen evil gods, this thing is basically a ticking time bomb. Who knows when it might bite back and blow oneself to smithereens. As for whether Apophis would come back to life and wreak havoc on the three realms because of this disturbance, no one dared to think about it. Within the three realms, many second-rate pantheons were cursing and swearing. They felt that the Red Dragon Emperor was a jinx, chaos followed him wherever he went, and he was completely a troublemaker. As for those top-tier pantheons, they were as steady as Mount Tai. They all had super devils backing them, so even if that primeval dragon of darkness, Apophis, really came back to life, what could it do? Back in ancient times, over a dozen high-level evil dragons turned the world upside down, yet they were still suppressed by them. A mere Apophis could be sealed again if it came. But there was one piece of news that made these big shots fall into collective silence. When the Red Dragon Emperor wreaked havoc in heaven, he used his dragon reincarnation form. And on him, there was not a trace of human aura left. This meant that he had completely turned into a dragon. There were many smart people in the three realms, and the top brass of the major factions were almost all old foxes. They pieced several things together. The Red Dragon Emperor had been extracting dragon essence everywhere, and news came from the underworld that the devil reincarnation technology had been stolen. Although it was just a rumor, the underworld didn't come out to deny it. That meant it was 9 times out of 10 the Red Dragon Emperor's doing. Coupled with him breaking into heaven and snatching Apophis's original dragon soul. Behind this series of actions pointed to a shocking result. The Red Dragon Emperor's current appearance was the best evidence. He had created dragon reincarnation. He had turned himself into a dragon. Once this conclusion came out, the top brass of the major factions were all silenced. Some were shocked that dragon reincarnation actually existed, while more were stunned by the genius methods of this generation's Red Dragon Emperor. Over in the underworld, the Beelzebub Demon King didn't say a word for a long time. He had developed the devil reincarnation technology, but the Red Dragon Emperor had done something he wouldn't even dare to imagine. Dragon reincarnation. In a certain canyon, on a large rock, a bewitching woman lay lazily. Her black hair was disheveled, cat ears stood on top of her head, and that pair of alluring eyes could make men lose their souls with a simple blink. She was wearing a black kimono, and a cat's tail behind her was swaying restlessly. Valley, have you heard? She licked her hand and spoke to a silver-haired youth beside her. The youth had already entered the balance breaker state. The Red Dragon Emperor seems to have succeeded, he really has turned into a dragon. Kuroka's voice carried a hint of seductiveness. That brat's crazy plan seems to have worked. It wasn't Valley who replied, but Albion, who resided in his sacred gear. The White Dragon Emperor's voice carried a sense of emotion. His dragon reincarnation actually only succeeded halfway. Valley was quite calm. Going to heaven to snatch Apophis's original dragon soul is for the next step. Kuroka had long since figured out the dragon reincarnation of that Red Dragon Emperor guy. He had specifically consulted Albion about the theoretical aspects, so he had an idea. After the Red Dragon Emperor turns into a dragon reincarnation, he should be able to produce even more powerful offspring. Dark light surged in Kuroka's eyes, rippling endlessly. She stood up and left a sentence. Valley, I have to go out for a few days. Valley didn't need to guess to know that this woman was going to see the Red Dragon Emperor. He replied casually, if you run into that guy, remember to tell him that the last coordinate has been obtained. Tell him to behave himself recently and not to alert the enemy. If the underworld gets wind of it, it will be hard to make another move. Meow. Got it. Kuroka used senjutsu to flash away directly. Only a string of bell sounds remained echoing in the valley. Valley narrowed his eyes, calculating in his heart. That guy's dragon reincarnation is almost finished, and his strength must have increased by a huge margin again. In an era where gods are all dead, having such an opponent is exciting enough. He stopped thinking about it, calmed his mind, and continued to refine the resentment accumulated by previous generations in the White Dragon Emperor's wings, pondering how to create a new juggernaut drive form. These past few days, the three realms have been in chaos. Those second-rate pantheons, especially those who participated in sealing the primeval dragon of darkness, Apophis, back then, were all scared out of their wits. Fearing that the vengeful evil dragon would suddenly return for revenge, the entire divine realm raised the highest alert, and their defenses were heightened to the maximum. Luo Yu, on the other hand, caused such a big commotion, yet he holed up in his villa for days without going out. He cooperated with Didrag to suppress Apophis with all his might, bit by bit stuffing it into the dragon reincarnation ritual. Phew. Luo Yu let out a breath of stale air and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He stared with satisfaction at the large emerald gemstone on the boosted gear on his left hand, inside which was embedded a shrunken-down Apophis. Thanks to the seal runes of those foolish gods, Apophis's power was suppressed tightly, otherwise, it would have been really hard to deal with it. The next step of the dragon reincarnation would rely on the boosted gear as an altar. Luo Yu said solemnly, Didrag, let's start the next step directly and fully transform into a true dragon reincarnation. I'm ready. Partner, I've been waiting for those words. You must hold on. With the boosted gear as the altar, it was natural for Didrag, the former heavenly dragon, to be the main officiant. The second step of the dragon reincarnation depended entirely on Didrag's performance. The boosted gear on his left hand suddenly lit up with a blinding red light, like a red-hot branding iron. Didrag took action directly, beginning to cut Luo Yu's soul. He was cutting his own soul. Those original dragon souls all carried an undying property, they couldn't be destroyed or swallowed. If Luo Yu wanted to complete the second step of the dragon reincarnation and create a set of original dragon souls belonging to this holy light dragon body, he had to take a crooked path. He stuffed his own soul into Apophis's original dragon soul. Pitting consciousness against consciousness head-on. Using consciousness to swallow the other's consciousness. Using his own soul as the foundation to rebuild the core of the original dragon soul. From inside to out, from beginning to end, casting it all over again. Only in this way could he take it over and give birth to his own original dragon soul. Didrag took over, and Luo Yu's soul was forcefully stripped out. A gray, hazy shadow, 3 inches long, looking exactly like Luo Yu, slowly floated out from the top of his head. This was Luo Yu's soul. The body without a soul collapsed limply to the ground, directly entering the pre-prepared state of suspended animation. Luo Yu knew that if snatching Apophis's original dragon soul dragged on too long, suspended animation would turn into real death. By then, the boosted gear would also, because his body was completely dead, be allowed by the heaven system to detach from his shell and go find the next owner. Even if he snatched it, it would be equivalent to losing. Time was incredibly tight. There was no time to hesitate. Luo Yu dove headfirst into that emerald gemstone on the boosted gear, or more accurately, burrowed into Apophis's original dragon soul. Dreg also took action. He had to press down on Apophis's consciousness firmly, never allowing it the slightest sign of awakening. Luo Yu felt himself fall into a gray, hazy soul world. Floating directly above his head was a small planet, which was the condensation of Apophis's consciousness. The consciousness planet. The core of the original dragon soul. As long as he replaced it, Luo Yu could completely control this soul world, which was the entire original dragon soul. In the next second, Luo Yu's soul exploded directly, turning into a cluster of gray-white mist, surging toward that consciousness planet, wrapping it up bit by bit. Boom! Luo Yu collided with the consciousness planet. A terrifying shockwave, overwhelming like a landslide, exploded in the gray, hazy soul world. One was Luo Yu, who was attacking actively, and the other was Apophis, who was being suppressed by Dreg and could only take a beating passively. This was one of Luo Yu's winning chances. The white mist formed by Luo Yu's consciousness began to slowly erode Apophis's consciousness planet. Immediately after, the consciousness planet's counterattack arrived. Countless torrents of consciousness, like a tsunami, forced their way into Luo Yu's soul, attempting to assimilate his consciousness and make him completely lose his sense of self. Luo Yu was like a small boat, struggling desperately to steady himself amidst the raging waves. If he relaxed even for a moment, he would be completely devoured. The only thing he could do was grit his teeth and hold on. As long as he withstood the counterattack of the consciousness planet and held out long enough, he could erode it bit by bit. The white mist continued to seep inward, eroding the consciousness planet. At the same time, the opponent's counterattack became increasingly fierce. Both sides were like endurance racers, whoever couldn't hold on first would be finished. He didn't know how much time had passed. In this gray soul space, it was impossible to feel the passage of time. The white mist formed by Luo Yu had already penetrated to the third layer of the consciousness planet. At this moment, Apophis seemed to sense something wrong and wanted to forcibly wake up. The entire consciousness planet shuddered violently, and several strands of autonomous energy began to churn. But before it could do anything, a crimson light struck down from the sky, directly suppressing that spark of awakening. Luo Yu ignored this and continued to bury himself in the erosion, determined to make this consciousness planet completely his own. It felt like countless years had passed. Several times, Luo Yu almost fell into Apophis's torrent of consciousness, his consciousness on the verge of dissipating. But every time he was about to give up, Dreg outside would use various methods to wake him up, forcing him to continue this endless tug of war. Now, Apophis's consciousness planet had completely turned into a large ball of gray mist. Luo Yu's consciousness had completely replaced Apophis's. He could feel that the entire soul space was under his control. Done. Dreg stared at the emerald gem on the boosted gear. The original dragon soul that had been coiled inside suddenly ignited with an invisible flame. The flames spread like a wildfire, engulfing the entire original dragon soul in the blink of an eye. This was the flame produced by the dragon soul's self-combustion, burning entirely with soul power. Within the invisible flames, the original dragon soul began to twist and deform. One moment it took one shape, the next another, as if it were desperately trying to find the form most suitable for itself. Luo Yu was forging his own original dragon soul. The primordial dragon of darkness, Apophis, who was notorious in the three realms, had completely disappeared. Replacing it was a holy light dragon possessing an original dragon soul. Seeing that Luo Yu was still forging the original dragon soul, it would likely take quite some time. Dreg had nothing better to do, so he kept an eye on the forging progress while maintaining a state of suspended animation for Luo Yu's body. He didn't want to fail at the last moment because of some oversight. That would be too much of a loss. Luo Yu condensing his own original dragon soul was ridiculously easy compared to the business of fighting for control against Apophis earlier. In half an hour, he had created the original dragon soul. A gray, miniature version of a holy light dragon lay quietly inside the emerald gem of the boosted gear. Luo Yu stared at it for a moment, feeling quite satisfied. From now on, his soul was on the same level as a high-ranked dragon species. At most he could be sealed, but he would not be completely destroyed. Then, the original dragon soul crawled out of the gem and merged directly into his body. In an instant, a terrifying dragon pressure exploded throughout the room. It wasn't a quantitative change, but a qualitative one. The dragon pressure he released now would make ordinary dragon species kneel upon seeing him. Luo Yu was now fully qualified to be called a high-ranked dragon species. Although his strength was still lacking, in terms of status, he was already on the same level as the 5 great dragon kings, the Red Dragon Emperor, and the White Dragon Emperor, those 2 heavenly dragons. Following that, a feeling of clarity surged throughout Luo Yu's body. He had an illusion that his eyes could suddenly see everything clearly, and his body felt indescribably comfortable. Using a human soul to control a holy light dragon previously did indeed have some flaws and gaps. Luo Yu instantly understood what was going on. Apart from the immortality, the original dragon soul wouldn't actually make him much stronger. But this was an unavoidable step for him, as it related to whether he could eventually surpass the heavenly dragon level, which was the super devil level. Luo Yu flipped his hand. Several streams of black water appeared out of thin air, quickly gathering into a black water ball in his palm. Black water. Apophis did leave you something decent. Didrag was stunned for a moment. He really hadn't expected Luo Yu to be able to snatch Apophis's black water. That thing was not simple. In ancient times, that guy relied on this ability to swallow quite a few gods, and it was on the same level as the Crimson Emperor Flame. The attack skill is not bad. It's just that its function overlaps with the Crimson Emperor Flame. It would have been better if it were a defensive or support type. By the end, Luo Yu laughed himself. Whether it was the Crimson Emperor Flame or the Black Water, countless gods in the 3 realms were terrified of them. For an ordinary person, obtaining one would be like their ancestors' graves smoking with good fortune, yet he had obtained 2 and still complained, truly being greedy enough to swallow an elephant. Sigh. This time, the master and mistress were both wrong. In the first-floor lobby, Butler Izumi stared at Luo Yu's room on the 4th floor, his heart full of emotion. Just a moment ago, he felt as if the young master-in-law's room had turned into a terrifying black hole, dangerous enough to make one's scalp tingle. Although it was just an intuition, he hadn't sensed any aura or detected any anomalies. But this intuition had saved him countless times and allowed him to survive the Great War. At this moment, he no longer dared to think that this nominal new son-in-law of the Seatree clan was a simple character. Sona stared at the agreement on the table, unable to suppress the bitter smile at the corner of her mouth. It was written clearly on it that the engagement would be dissolved upon graduation. She had signed it herself, and Luo Yu's name was also written beside it. Every line of text now looked like a slap in her face. She had brought this upon herself, insisting on showing off, and ended up dragging her sister into it as well. Little sister, how boring it is to be here alone. Why don't you let us brothers keep you company for a couple of drinks? 3 young men with dyed yellow hair and gaudy clothes swaggered into the private room. Sona didn't even look up. I'm waiting for someone, please leave. Her tone was so cold it could freeze. The yellow-haired leader chuckled and leaned against the door frame. Waiting is so boring, why not chat with us brothers while you wait? He had seen plenty of such young girls sneaking out to play in a bar. Their families had no idea, making them the easiest to deceive. The yellow-haired guy was just about to step closer. Sona raised her eyes, her voice cutting over like a blade. Get out. A layer of red light instantly flashed in Sona's eyes. The eyes of those hooligans went blank, as if they had lost their souls, and they stumbled out of the private room. This kind of place doesn't suit you. Neither for your age, nor your temperament. Luo Yu brushed past the hooligans, walked into the private room, and sat directly opposite Sona. There's nothing wrong with indulging occasionally, it's just right when you're feeling blocked inside. Sona smiled, but there was mostly bitterness in that smile. She raised her hand to call the waiter to bring a few bottles of liquor. Luo Yu didn't know much about alcohol, but he understood the alcohol content on the bottles. The proof of those drinks far exceeded what a normal girl could handle, they were pure hard liquor. If it were an ordinary woman, she would be dead drunk after a few glasses. You look like this, but it doesn't look like the you I know. Seeing Sona pour a full glass and down it directly, looking exactly like someone who came to drink away their sorrows, Luo Yu frowned slightly. A faint flush appeared on her face, looking exceptionally alluring. Luo Yu, the me you know, do you mean the current me, or the me in the underworld? Or perhaps, the me in the Seatree clan? Sona asked 3 questions in a row. Luo Yu was silent for a few seconds. He really hadn't expected Sona to bring it out into the open like this was a bit off. She had indeed been acting strange lately. Both, I suppose. The you in the underworld was much calmer and more rational than you are now. Luo Yu didn't hide anything and said it directly. Since the other party was already suspicious, there was no point in being evasive. You know more than I imagined, and you hide it deeper. At first, I thought at most you had some secret arts passed down from your ancestors, or some special power. Sona was stunned for a moment, then gave a bitter smile. It seems you've been to the underworld more than once, and you've even been to my Citri clan. Is it because of that engagement paper between us two? Looking at it now, that agreement was nothing more than self-consolation. Perhaps, when we first met, in your eyes, I was just a self-righteous clown. Luo Yu then noticed the agreement they had signed earlier lying on the table. He thought for a moment and decided to tell the truth. Going to the underworld Citri clan was pure coincidence. As for the engagement, if you hadn't come to find me, I wouldn't have known about it at all. With your reputation in the underworld, if you stayed there for a while, you would have heard of it sooner or later. Among the new devil factions, one of the 4 kings. Sona Citri. 4 kings. Sona muttered these 2 words, her mouth full of indescribable self-mockery and sarcasm. She and Rias Grimori were both leaders of the new devil faction. But in the end, they were just 2 birds trapped in a cage, unable to fly out. The music played incessantly in her ears. Luo Yu never expected that his deliberate concealment would instead cause the current head of the Citri clan to become completely disappointed, wanting to directly destroy the agreement made with the fallen one back then. This result really left him not knowing whether to cry or laugh. Between tears and laughter, that was probably the most accurate description of his current state. However, Luo Yu also knew clearly that even if he performed brilliantly, Sona would probably still come to him to call off the engagement. She and Rias Grimori were the same. They both wanted to hold their own lives in their hands, whether it was the path of the future or the big matter of marriage. Even if the thorns on the road cut their delicate skin until they were bleeding, they would not hesitate. But unfortunately, Sona suddenly laid everything out at this moment, with an attitude that was like breaking the pot to smash it, willing to sacrifice herself. Sometimes, things might go according to your wishes, but in the end, it always goes against your expectations. Gulp, gulp. Sona tilted her head back again, downing the liquor in her hand completely, and immediately filled herself another glass. Just as she was about to down it in one breath, Luo Yu reached out to stop her and took the glass away. What's the use of drinking your sorrows away like this? What exactly happened? This was the second time he had asked this question tonight. Luo Yu always felt that Sona becoming like this had a lot to do with him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have asked him out without saying a word. Sona was already a bit tipsy by now. She stood up and walked to Luo Yu's side. Sona's action stunned Luo Yu. She leaned over, resting her head gently on his shoulder, and wrapped her arms directly around his neck. He could even feel her breath, carrying a faint fragrance. The agreement between us is completely void from now on. Luo Yu remained silent. But Sona's next sentence completely stunned him. From this moment on, I am your true fiancé. I will do everything a fiancé should do. Including sharing a bed. Sona, you. Luo Yu didn't know how to respond for a moment. His mind was a complete mess right now. Yet, he clearly heard the coldness seeping through her tone when she spoke. Don't say anything. Let me sleep in peace for a while. My sister always tells me that if there's anything bothering me, a good sleep will fix it. Sona closed her eyes. Her long eyelashes were visible, and her breathing gradually steadied. Before long, she was truly asleep. The kind of sleep without any guard. Luo Yu looked down at the girl leaning on his shoulder, feeling a bit uneasy. Even in her sleep, her brows remained furrowed. He gently reached out to wrap his arm around her waist, fearing she might slide off his shoulder. What on earth is going on? He was completely confused now. Not to mention the causes or consequences, he didn't even have the most basic clues. Why did Sona suddenly decide to become his real fiancé? Although they were engaged before, anyone with eyes could see it was just a title. But now, she was genuinely making it official. And in a way that felt like marrying beneath her partner. You really have quite the luck with women. The next head of a pure-blooded devil noble family, the younger sister of a Satan, throwing herself into your arms. Who knows how many people dream of this? Diedrag's voice emerged from his mind, carrying a hint of teasing. I don't feel lucky. I just feel it's inexplicable and I can't wrap my head around it. Luo Yu knew it very well. Sona was definitely not the kind of woman who would listen to others and let them dictate her fate. Yet she had bowed her head. She was staying obediently in that beautiful cage, no longer struggling. This in itself was strange. Partner, if I'm not mistaken, the contract on her has gone wrong. The contract. Luo Yu repeated in a low voice. He hadn't thought much about the contract before. That thing seemed one-sided, governing Sona, not him. He reached out and brushed aside Sona's bangs as she slept. He lightly traced his finger across her smooth forehead. A familiar-looking contract chain emerged. This is. Luo Yu was stunned. Just as I thought. The contract on her has strengthened. Drake didn't seem surprised when he saw this. But just because he wasn't surprised didn't mean Luo Yu wasn't. The contract chain that appeared on Sona's forehead seemed to be only half of it. But it had many similarities to the black and gold patterns next to the emerald gemstone on his boosted gear. What exactly is going on, Drake? Drake didn't beat around the bush and spoke directly. Remember the hilt of the first holy sword you fused with. The contract your fallen one ancestor signed with the Sea-Tree clan used that hilt as a medium. But after the hilt merged into the boosted gear, the contract transferred along with it. The boosted gear is a sacred gear, far stronger than the hilt of the first holy sword. Once the contract entered the boosted gear, it was treated as a new medium and also enjoyed the boosted gear's amplification ability. Luo Yu's eyes widened. The boosted gear's amplification can even strengthen a contract. It definitely wouldn't work under normal circumstances, this is a special case. Otherwise, the entire three realms would have been in chaos long ago. Drake paused and continued. And that contract chain on her is now only half. The other half has extended outward. Luo Yu's mouth twitched. This contract involved his engagement with the Sea-Tree clan. He didn't need to think to guess who was bearing the other half that extended out. Sona's sister, Seraphal Leviathan, one of the four great Satans of the underworld. The Sea-Tree clan only had these two daughters in this generation. Given that woman's temper, the fact that she could still hold back and not come to trouble him was already giving him enough face. Sigh. Luo Yu sighed, finally sorting out the sequence of events. After the contract was amplified by the boosted gear, the transition method originally intended to bypass the invalidation was completely blocked. Although he didn't know how exaggerated the binding force was after the contract was strengthened, one thing was certain, even a super devil of Seraphal Leviathan's level couldn't handle this thing. Otherwise, Sona wouldn't have chosen to sacrifice herself to accept the contract. The main body of the contract was on her. As long as she, the primary subject, accepted her fate and was willing to take on this contract, the binding force on her sister would naturally weaken significantly. After all, that was just a derivative of the strengthening, not the original one signed. It was impossible to invalidate the contract. But with Seraphal Leviathan's strength, forcibly suppressing it was no problem. For the Sea-Tree clan, if it came to choosing between Sona and Seraphal Leviathan was one of the four great Satans of the underworld. Her weight was far, far greater. Moreover, the entire underworld would never allow Seraphal Leviathan to be sacrificed. Luo Yu looked down at the sleeping Sona, his eyes full of heartache. She was like a child abandoned by the whole world, unable to do anything but accept this unfair fate. The morning sunlight spilled into the room, landing right on Sona's fair and delicate face. Sona felt a warmth on her face, as if being gently awakened by the sunlight. Her eyelashes fluttered, and she opened her eyes groggily, her vision still a bit blurry. Her head throbbed, causing her to instinctively raise her hand to press her temples. She was a pure-blooded devil. Logically, human alcohol shouldn't be able to get her drunk. But last night she had been drinking to drown her sorrows on purpose. The alcohol didn't intoxicate her, she intoxicated herself. This is my room. Once her mind cleared a bit, Sona looked around. Seeing the familiar ceiling engraved with a landscape map, and that large pink bed, yesterday's events all came flooding back. It's good that it's clear, at least my sister won't be dragged down by me. She stared at the birds flying freely outside the window, Luo Yu's face flashing through her mind. If it were that person, perhaps the days ahead wouldn't be as unbearable as she imagined, not like a bird in a cage. Of course, the premise was that she had to try to genuinely like him. Ding ding ding, a crisp bell sound rang from outside the door, along with a maid's soft call. Come in. The door pushed open, and two maids walked in carrying clean clothes and hot water. Young mistress is awake. Sona nodded, got up from the bed, and walked to the vanity, letting the maids help her get ready. She asked casually, "Did Luo Yu bring me back yesterday?" "Indeed, not only did he bring you back, but once in the room, young mistress held onto the young master's neck tightly and wouldn't let go. We tried to pry you off for a long time, but young mistress just wouldn't let go. It wasn't until midnight that you let the young master go." Hearing the maids tease her like this, Sona's face flushed red instantly. She didn't expect to make such a fool of herself after getting drunk. It seemed that alcohol was something she should touch less in the future. Before long, Sona was done getting ready. At this moment, butler Izumi walked in. "Young mistress, breakfast is ready." "Butler Izumi, please prepare one more serving of breakfast and go call Luo Yu." Their relationship had changed since last night. They couldn't continue interacting like tenants as before. She also wanted to take a step forward. After all, this had to be faced sooner or later. "Very well, young mistress." Butler Izumi smiled slightly, exited the room to order an extra breakfast, and went to invite Luo Yu himself. Not long after, at the long dining table in the first floor living room, Luo Yu and Sona sat facing each other, eating a simple breakfast. "Luo Yu, someone is coming to the villa later for devil reincarnation to become my subordinate." Their relationship was settled, and Sona felt Luo Yu had the right to know some things. "Do you need me to step away?" Luo Yu finished the milk in his glass and wiped the corner of his mouth as he asked. Sona shook her head, smiled, and said, "That's not necessary. The devil reincarnation ritual doesn't usually exclude others from being present, it's just." He paused, his tone carrying a hint of helplessness. "It's just that this future subordinate of mine has a temper that's not easy to deal with. And she won't recognize me as her master, that was a condition we agreed upon beforehand." Luo Yu raised an eyebrow, his eyes filled with surprise. A subordinate who doesn't acknowledge the master's status. What's the point of taking in such a subordinate? Pure-blooded devils of the underworld didn't have high loyalty requirements for reincarnated devils, but who would want someone under them who might betray them at any time? Even more troublesome was that, according to Sona, even if the other party really ran away, she couldn't even be branded as a stray devil. After all, it was agreed upon. Sona saw Luo Yu's confusion and continued to explain, "She is very strong. She can fight a high-class devil with a human body and hides a sacred gear as a trump card. Her combat power is not inferior to mine. So, I can accept the conditions she proposed. If you want a powerful subordinate, you always have to pay a price, don't you?" Luo Yu's mind spun. Sona's first subordinate was a queen, named Tsubaki Shinra. But in his memory, Tsubaki Shinra had always been obedient to Sona. How could she be so rebellious? No. Could it be that Sona tried to take in other subordinates before this but didn't succeed? Luo Yu became interested and asked, "What is her name?" "Tsubaki Shinra." Luo Yu was stunned. It really was her. Shinra, the Shinra clan, wasn't that an exorcist family? He remembered that just after he completed the balance breaker for the boosted gear, he had saved a little girl on a whim. She was being hunted by the Shinra clan at the time. That little girl, wasn't her name Tsubaki? He had just always called her little Tsubaki and forgotten her full name. Luo Yu looked at Sona, his mouth twitching as he revealed a helpless smile. What a foolish coincidence. The little girl he saved back then had actually become Sona's subordinate. It was not strange at all that Tsubaki Shinra had the strength she had today. Luo Yu had personally taught her physical techniques and cultivation methods for a period of time, laying a good foundation. More importantly, according to the original plot, she would have been placed under house arrest by the Shinra clan because of her sacred gear, wasting her golden period of cultivation. Later, it was Sona who saved her, and she became a subordinate. But because he intervened early, Tsubaki Shinra regained her freedom early and didn't miss those critical years of building her foundation. However, becoming a subordinate but not acknowledging the master, being so rebellious and willful. This was completely different from the little Tsubaki in his memory. That girl had always been soft-spoken in front of him, let alone talking back. She wouldn't even dare to say a single word of dissent. Time flew by until noon. Sona and Luo Yu sat on the living room sofa, drinking black tea brought by the maids while waiting for someone. To be honest, the quality of this black tea was average. It's far worse compared to Akano. That girl has been particularly skilled at the tea ceremony since she was young, probably following her mother Aunt Shuri's interests. However, although Luo Yu was not very satisfied with the drink, he still politely finished all the tea in the cup. The maid wanted to refill it for him, but he waved his hand to refuse. Tap, tap, tap. A series of footsteps came from the doorway, getting closer and closer. They're here. Luo Yu turned his head to look at the doorway. He had waited here specifically because he wanted to see that little Tsubaki Shinra he had taught for a while back then. A tall, slender young girl walked in. She was wearing black women's leather shoes, her legs long and straight, and her long hair hung almost to her calves, spreading out like a fan. Her features were delicate and small, and one could faintly see the shadow of that little Tsubaki Shinra from back then. Luo Yu sighed inwardly. This girl has really changed a lot. I almost didn't recognize her. I remember when I taught her back then, little Tsubaki Shinra was like a small bean sprout, thin and short. Her hair was about the same as Sona's, just short, past her neck. Who would have thought that after these few years, she would have grown so quickly, her height almost catching up to his own, and she was a head taller than Sona. You've come. Sona stood up to greet her. Cut the chatter, hurry up and reincarnate me. Don't forget what you promised me. Tsubaki Shinra scanned her surroundings vigilantly, especially taking a few extra looks at the strange man on the sofa. The look in that man's eyes when he looked at her was a bit strange, she couldn't put her finger on what it felt like. In any case, she didn't like it. Luo Yu was actually quite satisfied. Not bad, she didn't forget what I taught her. No matter where, when, or in what position, as long as you don't let your guard down, you can protect yourself to the greatest extent. Drake asked. What, no plans to identify yourself to her? He paused and added, come to think of it, she counts as your student too. Now is not the time. Once we take down the god of the underworld, there will be plenty of time. Some accidents, no matter how small they seem now, are best avoided. Drake agreed with his caution. Indeed, those inconspicuous little accidents could easily lead to big trouble. Tsubaki Shinra stood in the center of the hall, and Sona initiated the reincarnation ceremony for her. A blue magic circle appeared on the ground, with the emblem of the Seatree clan engraved in the center of the pattern. The queen piece was tossed into the circle, instantly turning into rippling water shadows that seeped bit by bit into Tsubaki Shinra's body. The blue light flared up, and the devil reincarnation officially began. Tsubaki Shinra, it has begun. Sona whispered a reminder. Luo Yu leaned to the side, his gaze sweeping over the ceremony site indifferently, with no interest. In the past few years, in order to perfect the dragon reincarnation, he had watched devil reincarnations at least 1,000 times. If there was anyone in this world besides Ajuka Beelzebub himself who was most familiar with devil pieces, Luo Yu felt he could definitely rank among them. Other than coming up with a mutated piece, Ajuka Beelzebub doesn't seem to have made much of a breakthrough with devil pieces over these years. There was a hint of boredom in Luo Yu's tone. Drake's voice echoed in his mind. The fact that he could research the devil reincarnation technology has already shocked the pantheons of the three realms for many years. If he could keep upgrading and improving it, the underworld would likely become a target. That's true. Just as they were speaking, Tsubaki Shinra's reincarnation ended. With a swoosh, a pair of devil wings suddenly unfolded from her back. Tsubaki Shinra froze for a moment, and immediately after, she clearly felt her strength climbing crazily, as if some barrier inside her body had been broken through in an instant. She successfully broke through to become a high-class devil. It's that simple. Tsubaki Shinra looked down at her hands, her face full of disbelief. The bottleneck that had held her back for so long had actually been broken through so easily. Outside the door, Butler Izumi saw this scene, a gratified smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. Second young lady has really found a good servant. A high-class devil-level servant is not often seen in the underworld. Tsubaki Shinra adapted to the surging power and turned to leave. She had been a loner all these years and was not used to living with others. Before leaving, she promised Sona that she would enroll with her when Kuo Academy started. Luo Yu stopped cultivating and stared at the morning light that had just turned white outside the window, feeling a bit helpless in his heart. This speed is still too slow. He was now a bit nostalgic for the mirror lake of light in heaven. It had an endless supply of light elements and was simply a holy land for cultivation. The last time he went to the mirror lake of light to cultivate was before he broke through to the Mao class. As for the time he seized Apophis's source dragon soul, that didn't count as normal cultivation. These days, apart from playing chess with Sona to cultivate their relationship, he spent all other time in his room cultivating. The arcane magic array in the room that gathered light elements ran all day, but the effect was ridiculously poor. After struggling for several days, it wasn't as effective as drinking a mouthful of water from the mirror lake of light. At this snail-crawling speed, Luo Yu calculated that if he wanted to rise from the Mao class to the Super Devil King class, he would have to endure at least a few thousand years. He was not reconciled and asked again, Diedreg, is there really no other place with enough concentrated light elements? Forget it. Diedreg poured cold water on him directly. If places like the mirror lake of light were everywhere, the seventh layer of heaven wouldn't be the nest of divine beasts and holy beasts. And the Holy Light Dragon clan wouldn't keep shrinking back there and refusing to come out. In Diedreg's view, the entire heaven had the most light elements in the three realms. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that heaven was piled up from light elements. All of this, in the final analysis, was due to that being's ability. Luo Yu sighed. How about sneaking into heaven one more time? He thought about it and decided against it. Forget it. I might have gotten lucky sneaking in once or twice, but now that my aura has been recorded by the heaven system, there's no way to sneak in silently. The most likely outcome is that as soon as I step into heaven, the four great seraphs will surround me together. Last time he used a little clever trick, which was the only reason he escaped from Gabriel and the others' encirclement. To try to charge in again using a similar method would be to underestimate these old antiques who have lived since ancient times. Partner, you won't find a second place in the three realms of the same level as the mirror lake of light. Diedreg changed the subject. However, if you lower your requirements a notch, there are still a few places you can choose from. Lower a notch. How much difference? Luo Yu immediately pressed. For you at the moment, it's enough. With the help of the boosted gear, the effect won't be much different from the mirror lake of light. That'll do. A look of joy immediately appeared on Luo Yu's face. He didn't have high demands, he just wanted to finish accumulating for the Mao class quickly, strive to settle down after 3 years, that is, when the plot begins, and try to break through to the Super Devil King class. If that didn't work, he at least had to touch the edge of the peak of the Mao class. There are 2 places that are quite suitable for you, but there are also quite a few troubles. Diedreg paused. Both of these places are in the underworld. The underworld. Luo Yu was stunned. Isn't the underworld the place with the thinnest light elements? How could a place with rich light elements second only to the mirror lake of light emerge there? Could it really be that things turn into their opposites when they reach the extreme? Don't forget, the underworld doesn't just have devils, there are also fallen angels and those indigenous inhabitants who have been fighting for territory. If it weren't for this, the Great War wouldn't have started so easily. Diedreg reminded him. As it happens, the fallen angels also use the power of light. For them, light elements are their lifeblood. A figure stood in front of Luo Yu. Diedreg's voice echoed in his mind. In the Hell Plane, there is a branch of the mirror lake of light, which Azazel intercepted from heaven when he fell. That lake is where the entire fallen angel clan currently cultivates. Hell is a piece of territory that the fallen angels forcibly carved out from the underworld. The devils and fallen angels have been at war for tens of thousands of years, and the cause is this place. The fallen angels want to expand hell and swallow the entire underworld. The devils, however, want to drive hell out of the underworld. What about the second place? Although the branch of the mirror lake of light was tempting, it was the fallen angel's lair. Luo Yu knew clearly that such a place could not allow him to cultivate in peace. No matter how well he could disguise himself, he might get away with it once or twice. But cultivation is a long-term job, and sooner or later, he would be exposed. Diedreg's tone became even deeper. The ancient battlefield of the underworld, the place where the Great War took place back then. There is an area there that is the location where the god of light fell. The concentration of light elements is terrifyingly high, but it is mixed with fragments of that deity's consciousness. You have to spend time refining those fragments. Moreover, the first generation 4 great demon kings also died near there. You have to be on guard against their residual power causing trouble. Luo Yu frowned and didn't speak. He wasn't thinking about whether to go to hell or the ancient battlefield. He had already directly ruled out hell just now. Now, he was considering the trouble with the ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield of the underworld is a famous forbidden zone in the underworld. The high-level authorities of the underworld had long since completely sealed off that area. In other words, if he could cultivate inside it, he wouldn't have to worry about anyone disturbing him at all. Unlike back in heaven, where every cultivation session was like being a thief. But the problem is, the reason that Forbidden Zone was sealed wasn't because the underworld wanted to hide something. It was because it was truly dangerous inside. The corpses of those fallen beings, if spread out, could cover the entire human world. Various chaotic energy collisions, the storms they kicked up could easily tear apart a high-ranking devil. And the monsters bred from the flesh and blood were terrifying in number. Luo Yu weighed it in his heart for a long time. Just sitting here and thinking was useless. The places Diedrag mentioned had their value after all. But the problem was, how to get to that forbidden zone in the underworld. To save time, it would be best to set the spatial channel directly near the ancient battlefield. The land of the underworld is too vast. If the coordinates are slightly off, he would have to spend a lot of time flying over. Unfortunately, creating such spatial coordinates was not his strong suit. Sigh, he could only find someone to help. Luo Yu raised his finger and drew a row of special runes in the air. The runes flashed with light a few times. He waited quietly. The runes flared up suddenly, the light converging into a beam of blinding aurora. Illusory lightning exploded in the room out of thin air, electricity darting around, so bright that one couldn't open their eyes. Those lightning bolts were like thousands of snakes writhing, and like giant dragons roaring. Even knowing that everything before him was an illusion, the crackling of the dense arcs of electricity still made one's heart crawl. The next second, the lightning gathered quickly, condensing into a 5 or 6 meter tall humanoid lightning shadow. That shadow stood there, stepping on lightning under its feet, gripping thunderbolts in its hands, exactly like a god of thunder. It seemed as if as long as he waved his hand casually, the whole world could turn into a thunder prison, and if he lifted his hand, the lightning filling the sky could cover the firmament. Red Dragon Emperor, do you have business with me? The voice was very deep, carrying a flavor of judgment that could not be refuted. Luo Utsked. You make such a big scene every time you appear, are you afraid that others won't know you are the Thunder Emperor? Why are you putting on airs in front of me? This look of yours can only scare little kids who haven't seen the world. The Thunder Emperor helplessly removed his disguise. A young face appeared, looking about the same age as Luo Yu, and quite refined. A lazy smile hung at the corner of his mouth, and he looked light and airy, a bit of a slacker. However, everyone knew that this guy was the Thunder Emperor, one of the 4 great emperors, and the wielder of the second-ranked sacred gear, Zenith Tempest. If he really started a fight, even gods would tremble. Speak, what do you want with me this time? Let me warn you first, last time you wreaked havoc in heaven, that guy Michael personally adjusted the defense mechanisms. Many of the space coordinates for heaven that I held were rendered useless. The Thunder Emperor looked heartbroken. This loss is huge, you have to compensate me. Otherwise, don't even think about getting a single coordinate from me in the future. He had been so dignified just a moment ago, but now he was full of petty complaints. Loss? I don't think so. Luo Yu gave him a meaningful glance. This kid was getting bolder, he actually dared to blackmail him. Was he tired of living? The Thunder Emperor's heart skipped a beat. This guy, he couldn't have figured anything out, right? That's impossible. He had been hanging out with those 3 for years, doing everything he should and shouldn't have done, there was no reason for him to show any cracks. He was also very tight-lipped, he hadn't let a single word slip. This guy was probably bluffing. Stop playing dumb with me, your little tricks can't fool me. Let's get straight to the point, I want the space coordinates for the underworld. The Thunder Emperor inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief, then rolled his eyes. I say, Red Dragon Emperor, you didn't just call me out because you were bored and looking for entertainment, did you? Using space coordinates to go to heaven is fine, after all, there's heaven's defense system to cover it. But you want coordinates for the underworld too. That place isn't somewhere anyone can just go whenever they want, even with enough strength, it depends on luck. Moreover, people are running to the underworld from the 3 realms every day, those 4 great Satans don't have the free time to manage every single person. Of course I know that. If it were that simple, I wouldn't need to come to a professional like you. Ripping open space to the underworld directly results in random locations. I need a coordinate locked onto the ancient battlefield. The Thunder Emperor immediately understood Luo Yu's plan. You want to use the light elements in the ancient battlefield to cultivate. Luo Yu's background couldn't be hidden from the eyes of their old acquaintances. Things like dragon reincarnation were no longer secrets. Based on the appearance he revealed in heaven, many people had already guessed that the Red Dragon Emperor had most likely reincarnated as a holy light dragon in this life. He could no longer go to the mirror lake of light in heaven, so the ancient battlefield was indeed a good place to go. Of course, one had to weigh the dangers inside. The Thunder Emperor hesitated for a few seconds, looking troubled. It's not easy to obtain. Even if I wanted to intercept the space of the ancient battlefield to make a coordinate, it wouldn't be an easy task. That place is the junction between the fourth layer of heaven and the underworld. Legions of devils and angels are stationed on the perimeter all year round. Even the slightest disturbance would draw the attention of both sides. Luo Yu stood up and looked the Thunder Emperor up and down, not giving him a chance to continue making excuses. For you, things that others can't do are actually the simplest. Just as you said, the ancient battlefield is wedged right between the fourth layer of heaven and the underworld. Back then, to protect heaven and fearing that the Great War would spread, the Creator God struck first, breaking directly into the underworld from the fourth layer of heaven, making it the site of the decisive battle, and leading the armies of heaven straight in. After the Great War, whether they were fallen angels, or devils, they all had to keep a copy of the coordinates for the ancient battlefield. After all, that was the place where the Creator God and the first generation four great demon kings fell. It has extraordinary significance to everyone. The copy of the coordinates in heaven's hands shouldn't be difficult for you to get, right? Luo Yu leaned into the Thunder Emperor's ear and lowered his voice to finish the last sentence. The Thunder Emperor's expression sank bit by bit with every word Luo Yu spoke. I say, Red Dragon Emperor, you know that is heaven, right? The Thunder Emperor spread his hands, his tone carrying a hint of helplessness. We are both lone wolves, both lucky ones chosen by sacred gears. Although I can create space coordinates and know many people, I don't have the ability to obtain the coordinates of the ancient battlefield from heaven. You're giving me too much credit. He put on an expression of, there's nothing I can do. Luo Yu stared at him for 2 seconds. Thunder Emperor, you should be clear that I am going to the ancient battlefield just to cultivate, not to target the angel armies. He paused and added another sentence. You might not have the ready-made coordinates on hand, but you can get them from Gabriel, Uriel, or even Michael. When he got to the last 3 characters, he pronounced them one by one. Dulio Gesualdo. The Thunder Emperor's expression instantly turned cold. Red Dragon Emperor, are you saying that I am an undercover agent sent by heaven? Whether you are an undercover agent or not, you know best in your heart. That biggest trump card hidden by heaven, Dulio Gesualdo. Red Dragon Emperor, if you slander me again, don't blame me for being impolite. The Thunder Emperor's face looked even worse, as if he had been wronged. Luo Yu glanced at him, his tone nonchalant. All right, your acting is too terrible. It was truly the biggest mistake for heaven to send you to be an undercover agent. You haven't gained any benefits, and instead, you're being used as a tool by the Chaos Brigade every day. He paused and said again. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. Tell me, would Ophis believe your words, or mine? The Thunder Emperor fell silent. Luo Yu also stopped talking. The room was terrifyingly quiet, with only the electric arcs occasionally sparking on the Thunder Emperor's body crackling, indicating that his heart was not calm at all. After a long while, the Thunder Emperor sighed. Isn't it just the space coordinates for the ancient battlefield? I'll give it to you. You're old enough, yet you still run off to tell on people. Aren't you afraid of losing face as the Red Dragon Emperor? After speaking, he raised his hand and tossed out a space coordinate. Luo Yu took it and looked at it. This projection magic unfolded between the two was of the highest level. If both parties agreed and paid a certain price, they could even directly teleport people over. There shouldn't be any tricks in this coordinate like the last time with the heaven coordinates, right? You all in heaven look like nice guys on the surface, but when you really want to stab someone in the back, you're more ruthless than humans. The Thunder Emperor rolled his eyes as he listened. This guy was acting smug after getting an advantage. He was practically dragging Heaven's face on the ground and stomping on it with his shoe soles. If he wasn't sure he could definitely beat him, the Thunder Emperor would have already teleported over to fight him. But come to think of it, how on earth did the Red Dragon Emperor know that he was an undercover agent sent by Heaven to the Chaos Brigade? The church had absolutely no idea about him going undercover in the Chaos Brigade, and only the 4 seraphs in heaven knew about it. There was absolutely no possibility of it leaking. It was truly bizarre. The Thunder Emperor snorted coldly. Even if I did tamper with it, you could change it back yourself. Last time, wasn't the heaven space coordinate forcibly turned into a random drop point on the 7th layer by you? If I say I didn't change it, would you believe me? Luo Yu smiled and didn't respond, putting the coordinates into his pocket. The Thunder Emperor was absolutely right. I have no hostility toward heaven. To be more precise, whether it's the god and devil races of the three realms or the various pantheons, I have no grudges against anyone. The Thunder Emperor rolled his eyes. For these words to come out of the Red Dragon Emperor's mouth was simply shameless. This guy was messing around in the three realms every day, causing trouble everywhere. A while ago, he wreaked havoc in heaven and almost burned Raphael to ashes with the Crimson Emperor flame. Now, he was putting on an innocent face, saying he had no hostility. The three seraphs surrounded and attacked him, so he could indeed argue it was self-defense. But this time, he was the mastermind behind the hunt for the god of the underworld. He couldn't deny this. Luo Yu saw through what the Thunder Emperor was thinking and simply stated it clearly. The god of the underworld was blocking too many people's paths. The Dragon Eater Samael in his hands was too much of a threat to dragon species and had long become a thorn in the side of the major pantheons. I only led the initiative, doesn't you standing on my side mean that heaven has tacitly approved? The Thunder Emperor didn't make a sound. Luo Yu continued. There are quite a few dragon species in heaven, too. Hades has helped outsiders sneak into heaven to steal treasures more than once, you all should know that. The Thunder Emperor knew that every word the Red Dragon Emperor said was a fact. He couldn't be bothered to refute it, dropped one sentence, and the projection dissipated. Behave yourself during this period. The night was deep and thick, the moon hung high in the sky, and silver-white light blanketed the earth. On that small hill in the west, a church stood all alone. Since the last priest died suddenly, no one had taken care of the church. At night, the entire church and the small hill merged into pitch black, like a devil's lair. Even more eerie was that at dusk, people always saw black shadows streaking across the sky and diving into the church. This instead aroused the curiosity of many bold students. Once it was late at night, some would go to the church in groups to explore. Nothing had ever happened before. But recently, for some unknown reason, news kept spreading that young people went missing after going to the church. The entire church gradually became tainted with an eerie atmosphere. Recently, there was panic in Kuo town. Everyone was saying that a devil was hiding in the church, specifically coming out to catch people and swallow them alive. The rumors became more and more bizarre, and people in town all walked around that church. No one dared to approach at night, and even passing by during the day required taking a detour. The area that used to be quite lively was now as desolate as a ghost town. Tsubaki, how about, we go back? A streetlight at the foot of the church hill had long been broken and couldn't light up. The moonlight spilled down, barely allowing one to see the figures of two young girls. The girl walking in front had bright red hair, and a pair of brown eyes were embedded in her palm-sized face, exuding a fearless spirit. She had a long sword hanging at her waist, the blade longer than she was tall, looking as if she had stolen it from the adults. The girl behind her had long hair tied into twin tails, looking frail and weak, with a beautiful face. Right now, her eyes were full of panic, and her fingers were twisting her braids, refusing to let go. Kusaka, relax. Tsubaki Shinra patted the sword at her waist. Even if there really is some devil, there's nothing to be afraid of. My family was a famous exorcist clan in the past, and this sword is a demon-slaying blade passed down from our ancestors. It has been stained with the blood of many devils. I don't know if Tsubaki Shinra's words had an effect, or if that so-called family heirloom sword gave her confidence, but Raya Kusaka looked up at the church right in front of her. That place was pitch black, as if wrapped in a mass of thick ink, with not a single ray of light shining through. She still felt creeped out in her heart. But thinking about the rumors about devils eating people that were spreading like wildfire in town recently, and since she was naturally afraid of these monsters and ghosts, her legs were shaking like a sieve in the night wind. If Tsubaki Shinra wasn't with her, she wouldn't have dared to come to a place like this even if it killed her. But, Tsubaki. Rest assured, Kusaka, it'll be fine. Today, the two of us will personally break this rumor of the devil eating people. Raya Kusaka wanted to say a few more words, but just as the words reached her lips, she was grabbed by the hand by Tsubaki Shinra, who pulled her toward the mountain. She couldn't refuse her best friend, so she could only desperately cheer herself up in her heart. Although she was afraid of these things, in the end, she didn't really believe from the bottom of her heart that there were any monsters or ghosts in the world. Bolstered by a shred of curiosity, Raya Kusaka didn't say another word, letting Tsubaki Shinra drag her forward. Not long after, the two bold girls stood before the entrance of the church. Creak! The old, brown wooden door suddenly swung open on its own. A chilling, eerie gust of wind rushed out from within, hitting the back of their necks. Raya Kusaka grabbed Tsubaki Shinra's arm tightly, nearly crying out. Even Tsubaki Shinra, who usually feared nothing, swallowed hard and gripped the long sword at her waist tightly, as if that was the only way to find a sense of security. The two stepped gingerly into the church, which had been abandoned for who knows how many years. The floor and chairs were covered in a thick layer of dust. Their footsteps creaked against the wooden floorboards. What is this? Moonlight spilled in through the window, illuminating the angel statue ahead. Tsubaki Shinra and Raya Kusaka froze simultaneously. Rusted chains pierced directly through the statue's wings, and both its hands and head had been severed, rolling on the ground. Ha ha. Suddenly, an old, sinister voice echoed from the depths of the church. I never expected that in the middle of the night, two tender little girls would deliver themselves to my doorstep as a midnight snack. The two girls were startled. Tsubaki Shinra whipped out her long sword, brandishing it frantically in every direction. An exorcist blade. A pity, that thing is useful against devils, but it's useless against me. A twisted-looking old man slowly emerged from the dark corner, his eyes filled with bloodthirsty light. Are you, human, or a devil? Tsubaki Shinra's voice trembled. She held up her long sword and kept retreating, with Raya Kusaka inching backward alongside her. Human. A devil. The old man seemed triggered by the word, devil, and flew into a sudden rage. How dare you compare me to such a low-life creature? His expression was ferocious. I originally intended to give you a quick end, but now, I must kill you in agony to satisfy the hatred in my heart. As he spoke, a pair of black wings suddenly unfurled from his back. Fallen angels. Tsubaki Shinra and Raya Kusaka's eyes widened, faces filled with disbelief. Tsubaki Shinra was doing slightly better. Her ancestors had been exorcists, so she knew that things like devils truly existed in the world, even if she had never seen one. Since devils existed, fallen angels weren't so hard to accept. But Raya Kusaka was completely different. Before this, she had always believed that mythical creatures like devils, fallen angels, and angels were all made up by ancient people. But now, such a mythical creature stood alive before her. Her worldview felt like it had been shattered by a hammer. Raya Kusaka's legs shook so much she could barely stand, her eyes brimming with tears. She placed all her hope on Tsubaki Shinra beside her, wishing she could come up with some kind of plan. Tsubaki Shinra swallowed, her throat tight. She regretted it to death. If she hadn't insisted on coming, Sister Raya wouldn't have been dragged into this desperate situation. But saying that now was useless, she had to escape first. She snuck a glance behind her. The church's wooden door was only 5 or 6 steps away. If she reacted quickly enough, they might have a chance. But before she could move, the old man like fallen angel grinned, laughing sinisterly. Boom! A dull thud echoed. The large wooden door of the church was slammed shut by what seemed like an invisible giant hand, locking them in completely. It also locked away the last shred of the girl's hope. What this old thing loved most was watching humans slide from full of hope into despair. The church had now become a sealed iron can. Two powerless young girls facing a cruel fallen angel were no different than meat on a chopping block. Tsubaki Shinra glanced at the tightly closed door, knowing there was no turning back. She gritted her teeth, forcing down the fear in her heart, gripped her long sword tightly with both hands, kicked off the ground, and lunged toward the old man's chest. Sister Raya, find another exit and run. I'll hold him off. She roared without looking back. This was the last thing she could do for Sister Raya. Everything was caused by her own willfulness, and now she was counting on the rumor in her family not being made up, that the exorcist blade in her hand could truly hurt a fallen angel. Shinra, don't, Raya Kusaka screamed in terror. She was scared to death, but she couldn't bring herself to abandon her friend and run. Ha ha ha, the old man laughed, his face crinkling into wrinkles. Little girl, didn't I just say? That thing in your hand might be useful against low-level devils, but to a noble fallen angel like me, it's no different from scrap metal. He extended 2 fingers, covered in calluses and wrinkles. With a gentle pinch, he caught the blade of Tsubaki Shinra's sword, holding it firmly in place. Tsubaki Shinra tried desperately to thrust forward and pull back, but the blade didn't move an inch. The old man applied a little more force. Snap! The long sword shattered piece by piece, clattering to the ground. How is this possible? Tsubaki Shinra felt all the strength drained from her body, and she collapsed onto the ground. Her last hope was completely shattered. In this amount of time, let alone finding an exit, she couldn't even move a few steps. Little girls, be good and become my meal. The old man's mouth stretched to his ears. Being able to become my food is a blessing you earned in your past lives. Moonlight spilled into the dilapidated church, illuminating the shattered glass covering the floor. The eyes of the old fallen angel were bloodshot, and he licked his lips, looking as if he were staring at some peerless delicacy. I never expected to find someone like you among the fallen angels. I thought only rogue devils and yokai ate humans. A cold voice suddenly echoed in the church. Who's there? The old fallen angel jerked his head around. Come out if you have the guts. You dare play tricks on me from the shadows. I am a noble fallen angel. The voice came from all directions, making it impossible to pinpoint the source. Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka were stunned. They had already fallen into despair, never expecting a turning point in the mist. The two also hurriedly looked around, wanting to find the person speaking. Aren't you just a bird man with crow wings? Noble, my ass. Under the moonlight, a figure slowly materialized. It was Luo Yu. He glanced at Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka, recognizing these two girls as Sona's future peerage members. Since he had encountered them, he might as well save them. Die. The old fallen angel took advantage of Luo Yu's distraction and raised his hand to fire a light spear. The light spear reached Luo Yu in the blink of an eye. Watch out! Rei Kusaka shouted. But her warning was too late. Luo Yu didn't even dodge, he reached out and grabbed the light spear. Snap! The light spear shattered. The old fallen angel's eyes widened. How is this possible? Refusing to believe it, he gritted his teeth and mustered all his power, condensing dozens of light spears in one breath. They rained down on Luo Yu, covering the sky. Luo Yu just waved his hand lightly. All the light spears exploded, turning into specks of light that dissipated into the night. Time to go, trash. Suddenly, a sword appeared in Luo Yu's hand. Crimson Dragon Holy Sword. As soon as that holy aura appeared, the old fallen angel began to tremble. A holy sword. You are a wielder of the church's holy sword. My lord, save me. The old fallen angel let out a final, unwilling roar as his body was cleaved in two by Luo Yu's sword. Fresh blood splattered onto the wooden floorboards, and a thick, pungent stench filled the church. Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka stood frozen in place, unable to recover for a long time. The fallen angel from myths didn't even have a chance to fight back against this youth who looked about the same age as them. He had been butchered just like that, so easily. It was just as powerless as they had been when facing that brutal fallen angel moments ago. Are you two alright? Luo Yu called out. Rei Kusaka was the first to react, opening her mouth to say thank you. She had been so terrified that her legs had stiffened. Now that she relaxed, she couldn't stand steadily and fell straight toward the ground. She expected a painful fall. Instead, she landed in a warm, solid embrace. When she regained her senses, she realized she was leaning in the youth's arms. Her face turned red instantly. This was the first time she had been this close to a male. Are you okay? Luo Yu helped her up. I'm fine, thank you. Rei Kusaka lowered her head, staring at the tips of her shoes, her voice barely audible. Tsubaki Shinra stepped forward and said gratefully, thank you for saving us. May I ask, are you an exorcist? Her eyes were filled with adoration. Since she was little, she had especially admired the exorcists from legends who slew devils. She had always dreamed of becoming a real exorcist. Especially one like this gentleman before her, who could casually eliminate a monster like a fallen angel. I suppose so. Luo Yu couldn't be bothered to explain further. It wasn't wrong for this little girl to think he was an exorcist, he had killed plenty of devils, after all. You two had better leave quickly. The fallen angel sleeping below is about to wake up. There's another one of those monsters. Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka's expressions changed drastically. Had they stumbled into a demon's den, the nest of the fallen angels? Luo Yu casually slashed the church door open with his sword. Go. Tsubaki Shinra looked at Luo Yu with a bit of reluctance. She had finally met a real exorcist, and she had so many questions bottled up inside she wanted to ask. But she also knew that if the sleeping fallen angel woke up, staying here would only hold him back. She lingered, gazing at Luo Yu's back, before taking Rei Kusaka and leaving. Only Luo Yu remained in the church. He looked up, counting the fallen angels looking down at him from the air with indifference. 1, 2, 6. Plus the one I just killed, there are actually 7 fallen angels holed up in this little church. Not long ago, there were only 1 or 2 fallen angels squatting in the church. Now, it had jumped to 7 all at once. He knew the reason why. The next heads of the Citri clan and the Grimory clan had successively set foot in Kuo town, so the Grigori naturally had to send more personnel to keep an eye on things. The three factions were watching each other, and no one dared to make a reckless move, which barely maintained the fragile peace they had now. Lord Holy Sword Wielder, we haven't offended you, have we? The fallen angel who spoke looked to be in his 40s, with a pair of black wings on his back, exuding caution from head to toe. He was the strongest among this group of fallen angels, his strength bordering on that of a mid-level devil. You burst into the church without a word and killed our people, or you trying to start a war between heaven and the Grigori? As he spoke, his eyes kept darting toward the sword in Luo Yu's hand. That sword looked unfamiliar, it wasn't one of the church's famous 7 holy swords. But the aura it emitted was undoubtedly that of a holy sword. It was likely a hidden trump card of the church. It's not like there's no precedent for this. A wielder of a holy sword is dangerous enough, and adding a sword no one has ever seen before. If they actually fought, they might all be wiped out. The comrade who died just now is a living example. Don't try to press me with that peace nonsense. Luo Yu sneered. I'm not a member of the church. What does the life and death struggle between heaven and you fallen angels have to do with me? Besides, you few low-class fallen angels, do you really think you represent the entire fallen angel race? What a joke. The faces of the few fallen angels turned black. I can't be bothered to waste my breath on you. Since you're holed up in this church, you must have a stable space channel in your hands, one that leads directly to the underworld. I want that channel. Luo Yu stated his purpose clearly. After extorting the spatial coordinates of the ancient battlefield in the underworld from that guy, Thunder Emperor, he had tweaked them slightly to avoid being plotted against by that old schemer. The next step was to secure a stable space channel. He happened to recall that these fallen angels hiding in the church had a route to the underworld. Changing the coordinates would be easy, saving time and effort. Besides, if that channel wasn't stable enough, these low-class fallen angels wouldn't be able to withstand the force of traversing space. You lackey of the church, how dare you set your sights on the holy city? As soon as Luo Yu said this, the fallen angels were in an uproar. Claiming he wasn't from the church sounded like complete nonsense. The space channel in the church led to the Asa fortress, which was the throat of the city between hell and the underworld, the front line of the war. A holy sword wielder from the church wanting a space channel to the Asa fortress. It was clear he was looking for trouble. No fallen angel would be stupid enough to think he was there for a tour. Mantis is trying to stop a chariot. Luo Yu shook his head. You really don't know how to spell the word, death. A sky full of light spears poured down like a rainstorm. Luo Yu squinted and scanned the area, getting a feel for the situation. This bunch of fallen angels used the same tactics over and over, and even those cadre-level observers were the same. If they had been sensible and handed over the space channel voluntarily, he might have spared them. Unfortunately, since they insisted on seeking death, he couldn't be blamed for being ruthless. He couldn't be bothered to explain any misunderstandings or waste his breath. Moreover, the stench of blood on these fallen angels was so strong it was almost overwhelming. They must have had quite a few lives on their hands. Although he had long since reincarnated as a pure-blooded dragon species, the foundation of his past life as a human remained deep in his bones. He felt disgusted from the bottom of his heart towards such beasts who slaughtered their own kind, just as he found the filthy light power within them unbearable. He tossed the Crimson Dragon Holy Sword casually into midair. Immediately after, infused with his power, the entire sword expanded wildly. The terrifying holy aura erupting from the blade made the faces of the few fallen angels turn deathly pale in an instant. The light exploded, illuminating the entire church and the hill it stood on as if it were broad daylight. This is bad. Run. The middle-aged fallen angel's pupils shrank violently, his eyes filled with fear. This was something they couldn't block. The guy opposite them had at least the strength of a cadre. In a small place like Kuo town, why would the church send such a big shot? Obliterate. Luo Yu spat out the word coldly. On the Crimson Dragon Holy Sword, which had grown to 5 or 6 jong tall and was about to hit the church ceiling, that holy power transformed into countless sharp sword beams, sweeping wildly. The fallen angels' attacks were instantly drowned out. One after another, blood flowers exploded on their bodies. They didn't even have a chance to run. In just a few breaths' time, the fallen angels entrenched here were all slaughtered, and the air was filled with a pungent, bloody smell. It's underneath here. Luo Yu's gaze pierced through the ground, seeing the space channel hidden below. He stretched out his left hand, gently grabbed and pulled at the air, and violently ripped the channel out by its roots. A transparent, vortex-like channel shimmering with spatial fluctuations was slowly retracted into his palm, then vanished. His goal had been achieved. He was preparing to leave. Suddenly, a red magic circle lit up on the floor. It was the Grimoire clan's teleportation spell. The red light spread, staining the pitch-black church a bloody color. A man and a woman walked out of the magic circle. It was Rias Grimoire, the next head of the Grimoire clan, and her servant, Kiba Yuto. You are Luo Yu. Rias stared at the familiar face in front of her, stunned for several seconds. Fallen angel corpses lay scattered on the ground, blood flowing everywhere, and the intense, fishy smell rushed straight into her nostrils. Did you kill all of these? Nice to meet you, Rias Grimoire, future head of the family. As for these, it's obvious. Luo Yu spread his hands, not intending to deny it. Sometimes showing a few trump cards could make those in the shadows unable to gauge his true depth. Rias wasn't surprised that the other party could call her name. After all, Sona and Akino were very familiar with him, especially Akino. Their relationship was anything but ordinary. What really shocked her was that this guy had actually slaughtered all the fallen angels in this area. This level of strength had to be at least that of a high-class devil. She had heard quite a lot from Sona recently, knowing that this human fiancé, who was considered ordinary in the eyes of the underworld, was actually not ordinary at all. But she hadn't expected him to be this strong. Looking at him, not even a single hair was harmed. If she were the one fighting, she absolutely couldn't have done it so cleanly and neatly. Moreover, the holy light aura here was so thick it made one's skin crawl. For a devil, coming into contact with it was agonizing. Rias shifted her gaze and suddenly noticed the sword in Luo Yu's hand. She hadn't looked closely before, just assuming it was some kind of sacred gear. It made sense for a human with such strength to have a sacred gear. But when she looked closely, her eye sockets suddenly stung as if they had been burned. Holy sword. These two words didn't come from Rias's mouth, they were spoken through gritted teeth filled with deep-seated hatred. The one who spoke was Kiba Yuto beside her. Yuto, don't, Rias hurriedly reached out to stop him. It was too late. Kiba Yuto's eyes were bloodshot, and hatred had completely consumed his reason. He drew the demonic sword created by his sacred gear, two pitch-black long blades growing directly from his hands, and lunged at Luo Yu like a madman. Tisk, an idiot led by hatred. Luo Yu watched the person rushing over with a face full of disdain. He knew Kiba Yuto's pathetic situation perfectly well. Ruined by the church's Holy Sword project, he didn't go to settle scores with the masterminds but instead went crazy over a dead object. Is this called persistence? This is called being a coward. Snap. Luo Yu waved his hand casually. Kiba Yuto's two demonic swords, things condensed with the strength of a middle-class devil, were no different from paper in front of the Crimson Dragon Holy Sword and shattered into two pieces instantly. The wave of flames didn't stop. The layer of red flames on the Crimson Dragon Holy Sword was painless for fallen angels, but for burning devils, it was as effective as burning paper. Just a tiny spark brushing against him left Kiba Yuto's right arm charred black. It would likely be unable to be lifted for a short time. Ah! Go to hell. The holy power drilled into his bones, making Kiba Yuto's face twist in pain. Yet his eyes were fixed on Luo Yu and that sword, his hatred burning brighter than the holy flames. He slammed one hand into the ground, and demonic swords exploded from all directions like ground spikes, stabbing densely toward Luo Yu. Luo Yu glanced at it, feeling only annoyance. This fighting style looked fierce, but it was all flash and no substance. It would be better to concentrate his power on one point to stab him. Come, fire. He waved the Crimson Dragon Holy Sword casually. The crimson holy flames on the sword exploded into a wave of fire, rolling toward the surroundings. Those demonic swords emerging from the ground turned to ash the moment they touched the fire wave, just like paper touching fire. The waves of fire came one after another, piling up to 5 or 6 meters high, and slammed heavily toward Kiba Yuto. Judging by this stance, he wanted to burn the person to nothing. Stop. Rias's expression changed. She didn't expect Luo Yu to suddenly go for the kill. Yuto had only been grazed by the flames, and one arm was already ruined. These holy flames were even more lethal to devils than holy power. If hit head-on by those layers of fire waves, Yuto would have no chance of survival. She couldn't care about any rules anymore. The power of destruction rose from her body, condensing into a dozen magic balls, which she smashed fiercely toward Luo Yu. She wanted to interrupt his attack. Luo Yu drew an arcane magic symbol with one hand, and a three-headed giant wolf made of energy appeared out of thin air, pouncing toward Rias's magic balls. Boom! After the loud noise, the giant wolf and the magic balls exploded and vanished together. The shockwave of the explosion shook the area, and Luo Yu's attack on Kiba Yuto was slightly deflected, allowing the kid to barely dodge it. Luo Yu had originally intended to put his sword away. This kind of meaningless battle was a waste of time. But what happened next made his brows furrow tightly. Kiba Yuto didn't have a single patch of good skin left on his entire body, yet this guy was like a mad dog, still continuously conjuring demonic swords and lunging at him. There was nothing left in his eyes, only the holy sword and Luo Yu. Since you're seeking death, then I'll grant your wish. Luo Yu was not the type to swallow his anger after being attacked. Moreover, this guy in front of him wasn't qualified to make him endure it. Die. The killing intent on his body exploded instantly. Luo Yu, stop it. Don't. Rias screamed, trying desperately to stop him. But it was too late. Luo Yu's figure flickered and appeared directly in front of Kiba Yuto. The crimson blade pierced through his chest without hesitation. Blood splattered everywhere. Holy light and crimson flames burned onto him simultaneously. Before he could even scream, Kiba Yuto was reduced to ashes. Rias stood frozen on the spot. Her mind was a blank. Only the lingering sound of burning remained in the church. A surge of anger rose up, slamming against her reason like ocean waves. Deep red power of destruction burst forth from her, and cracks appeared on the church floor beneath her feet. It seems that rage doesn't just add fuel to the dragon race, it works just as well for other races. Your power of destruction has at least doubled. Luo Yu's tone was calm, as if he were talking about today's weather. He didn't care at all who Rias's rage was directed at. You killed Yuto. Rias's eyes turned blood red, as vibrant as her long hair. The power of destruction compressed into a dragon shape in her palm, and with an aura of destruction, it rushed straight toward Luo Yu. She had always treated her servants as family. She had truly invested her feelings. This had burned Yuto to ash right in front of her. This point could absolutely not be forgiven. What, Miss Rias, is it only allowed for your servants to slash at others, but not for others to fight back? Luo Yu raised his hand and slashed horizontally, cutting the dragon-shaped magic power in half. There was a mocking look on his lips. Your Grimoire clan is too overbearing. Or should I say, relying on the fact that your brother is the Lucifer. Shut up. Rias roared. This has nothing to do with my brother, nor is it my Grimoire clan being overbearing. She forcibly suppressed the urge to continue attacking. She knew very well that this fool was far stronger than her, even fighting for her life now would be futile. Yuto attacked you for a reason. Ha ha ha. Luo Yu laughed out loud, as if he had heard something amusing. That laughter sounded exceptionally jarring to Rias Grimoire's ears. Her expression darkened further. I really didn't expect that someone like Miss Rias Grimoire could say something so childish. Luo Yu stopped smiling, his face instantly turning cold. Regarding that Yuto you mentioned, he attacked me first, so naturally, I have my reasons for retaliating. He attacked me, that is the reason. A successor of the Grimoire clan couldn't possibly fail to understand such simple logic, could they? You are just twisting the facts. Rias Grimoire raised a finger, her voice rising. No. Luo Yu waved his finger, a cold smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Devils lure human souls because that is the nature of devils, exorcists slay devils because they must protect humans. The weak dying at the hands of the strong is both cause and effect, and the rule of law. He paused, his tone growing colder. Being weak is a sin, that is how this world has always been. Rias Grimoire was suppressed by his icy aura, unable to speak for a moment. Just then, a magic circle appeared out of thin air. Unlike the one from when Rias Grimoire appeared earlier, this magic circle was blue. Sona and Butler Izumi stepped out from it, and Butler Izumi spoke up. Let this matter end here. Sona quietly glanced at the Crimson Dragon Holy Sword in Luo Yu's hand, finally finding the answer to her inner question. So the Holy Sword was his trump card. A flash of surprise crossed Butler Izumi's eyes. He wasn't surprised that Luo Yu had a holy sword. As a descendant of that person, it was normal to possess a holy sword. What truly surprised him was Luo Yu's strength. To have slain so many fallen angels and still be able to easily suppress the Grimoire clan's successor, Rias Grimoire. This strength had likely already reached the peak of a high-class devil. How old was he? And he was still just a human. Combined with that holy sword, even if he were to act personally, he would find it troublesome. That dangerous intuition he felt in the villa earlier must have been from this sword. However, why did the aura on the holy sword feel somewhat familiar? Butler Izumi suppressed his inner doubts. There were more important matters at hand. The son-in-law of the Citri clan had killed a servant of the Grimoire clan's successor. Everyone knew that the Grimoire clan was the family that valued emotions the most in the underworld. Butler Izumi bowed slightly. Miss Rias Grimoire, could you please let this matter pass for the sake of the Citri clan? No. Rias Grimoire gritted her teeth. He killed my servant. I will never let him off easily. Miss Rias Grimoire. Butler Izumi's tone was calm. If the opponent intends to kill you and you still show mercy, that is just foolish. Our Citri clan's son-in-law did nothing wrong. For a devil servant to dare lay a hand on the son-in-law of the main family is, in itself, a betrayal. The underworld has its rules. Miss Rias Grimoire should understand that. Even if the head of the Grimoire clan were standing here, they would make the same choice. Sona stood to the side, silent. Speaking in this situation would only complicate things. Staying silent was the smart move. Luo Yu also remained detached, wearing an expression of someone watching the show without fearing it getting too big. However, Butler Izumi's words truly left Rias Grimoire speechless. Rias Grimoire knew clearly that she was in the wrong here. Even if this were taken to the underworld, she wouldn't gain any advantage. But she wouldn't just let it go like this. Before leaving, she glared fiercely at Luo Yu, a look that clearly told everyone, we are not finished. With a flash of a red magic circle, her figure vanished instantly. Sona finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, she was really afraid that Rias Grimoire would lose her temper and do something that couldn't be undone. Luo Yu, you were too impulsive. Sona sighed. I've known Rias Grimoire for so many years, and she never takes such losses. Are you saying I should have just stood there as a target and let that mad dog bite me? The coldness in Luo Yu's voice made Sona wave her hands quickly. I didn't mean that, nor did I intend to blame you. Butler Izumi explained from the side. Young master, the second miss is worried that Lady Rias Grimoire will go to complain to Lord Lucifer. After all, Yuto is a servant of the Grimoire clan, so this matter cannot just be dropped, even if Lady Rias Grimoire is in the wrong. Luo Yu sneered coldly. Justice. It's just an excuse for the strong to bully the weak. In this world, whoever has the bigger fist is justice. If I could knock out Lucifer with one punch, then the underworld would be mine to rule. Butler Izumi sighed inwardly. Ending this matter amicably was likely going to be difficult. Not only was the Grimoire side difficult to deal with, but their Citri clan's son-in-law was no pushover either. Someone who could say such things was definitely not to be trifled with. In the villa. Done. Luo Yu looked at the swirling spatial tunnel before him and nodded with satisfaction. After spending 2 whole days, he had finally finished modifying the spatial tunnel he had snatched from the fallen angels at the church. As long as he stepped through this door, he could go directly to the ancient battlefield in the underworld. It was much easier than opening a path himself. For convenience, he simply placed the tunnel in his room. He also placed barriers and arcane magic formations over it to conceal and hide it. 2 days had passed since he killed Yuto. Outside, everything was calm, nothing had happened. The Grimoire side was even more eerily quiet. Sona must have persuaded Rias Grimoire many times behind the scenes, fearing she would do something stupid out of impulse. If it really blew up, it wouldn't just be a personal grudge between Luo Yu and Rias Grimoire. Given their statuses, the relationship between the Grimoire clan and the Citri clan would definitely turn sour. However, Luo Yu knew clearly that as long as that brother, Seer's ex-Lucifer, didn't intervene personally, he wouldn't be afraid even if Rias Grimoire brought out the entire Grimoire clan. The most urgent matter right now was to increase his strength. With enough strength, he could walk sideways through the entire underworld without any issues. Luo Yu left an arcane magic disguise in the room and stepped directly into the spatial tunnel. This tunnel was completely different from the ones he opened himself. It was very stable inside. Walking through it, one could clearly see a layer of transparent film wrapping the inner walls of the tunnel, blocking all the violent spatial turbulence outside completely, with not even a bit seeping in. Even an ordinary person would be perfectly fine walking in this tunnel. If one had to say, the technology that the divine pantheons used for spatial manipulation was indeed impressive. If Luo Yu were to do it himself, he could create such a stable tunnel with some time and effort, but it would definitely be much more exhausting than for the fallen angels. Not to mention that the fallen angels had mass-produced these things. Wherever there was a church, it was basically equipped with one. Before long, Luo Yu arrived at the end of the tunnel. A purple moon hung in the dark red sky, emanating an ominous aura. Beneath his feet was the dry, hard, black earth, and the air was filled with cold and chaotic elemental factors. He had arrived in the underworld. Was it because he had used dragon reincarnation and completely turned into a holy light dragon? Compared to the last time he came, Luo Yu clearly felt uncomfortable all over. It was just as disgusting as when he first saw that filthy light power inside the fallen angels. Now that he was in the underworld, a sense of rejection welled up from the bottom of his heart. Although it didn't affect his performance, his body and senses were clearly protesting. He felt like turning around and leaving immediately. Perhaps angels were like this when they came to the underworld. And if devils went to the heaven, it probably wouldn't be as simple as just not adapting. In a place where light elements were excessively concentrated, a devil's strength would be reduced by at least 10 to 20%. Luo Yu pondered while flying. Back during the Great War, if the gods had set the battlefield in heaven, the outcome might have been similar, but the losses on the devil side would definitely have been several times more miserable than they were now. Luo Yu used arcane magic to cast a devil disguise on himself. The spatial coordinates he had previously obtained from Thunder Emperor were deliberately offset by a few kilometers, so he could reach it in a few minutes of flying. The closer he got to the ancient battlefield, the denser the number of devils became. Dark figures wandered across the dim earth, some were locked in combat, while others were fighting over territory. Scenes like this were repeated every day throughout the underworld, there was nothing unusual about it. On the way, a few low-class devils tried to intercept Luo Yu. Luo Yu didn't even draw his weapon, he just raised his hand and threw a punch, blasting them into a puddle of flesh. He looked up at the shattered sky above. It looked like a giant black hole. The firmament of the underworld had completely shattered, and what leaked out was not only violent spatial power but also a trace of light elemental aura that was so weak it could almost be ignored. This is the scar of the heavenly collapse left over from the Great War. On the other side of the heavenly collapse was the fourth layer of heaven. The Great War back then had such a wide impact that it completely shattered this layer of spatial barrier, and it still hadn't been repaired to this day. Through that crack, one could faintly see a corner of heaven, as well as the angel legions standing in strict formation, stationed there to prevent devils from taking advantage of the opportunity to invade. Below, the devil legions were also lined up in battle formation, with both sides confronting each other from afar across this heavenly rift. And directly below the scar of the heavenly collapse was the target Luo Yu was going to today, the ancient battlefield. This is the ancient battlefield. Relying on arcane magic to conceal his figure, Luo Yu easily bypassed the stationed devil legions. When the scene before him came into view, he couldn't help but gasp. For a radius of over 1,000 miles, everything was shrouded in chaotic and violent energy storms, like a thick wall, completely obscuring the scene inside the ancient battlefield. The storms faintly revealed a dark red color. That was the dense stench of blood, as if blood had congealed for thousands of years and still hadn't dissipated. Because the heavenly collapse blocks it, one cannot see the scene here from the outside at all. Luo Yu said in a low voice, his gaze sweeping over that barrier of storms. This thing has persisted for thousands of years without dissipating. Just this alone would be enough to tear a high-class devil into pieces. He judged that the source of these storm energies was most likely those guys who fell in the ancient battlefield back then. Devils, angels, fallen angels, the energy remaining after their deaths gathered together and formed this barrier. Be careful, the things inside are much more dangerous than this. Dedrag's warning sounded in Luo Yu's ear. The god of war and the first generation 4 great demon kings fell here. Not just them, but hundreds of millions of devils, angels, fallen angels, and other races from the 3 realms that were dragged into it. The number of Mao class and Super Devil King class powerhouses who died here is countless. And there were more Super Devil level beings than just those few from the first generation 4 great demon kings. Luo Yu nodded. He transformed directly, turning into a holy light dragon over 30 zhong long, and plunged headfirst into the storm. As soon as he broke in, the energy storm was like a lit powder keg, and the violent energy instantly crushed down toward him. If this level of energy impact had hit Luo Yu before he broke through to Mao class, he might truly have been unable to withstand it. But now, it only left a few shallow marks on his white scales. Dragon breath. A breath of holy light, like an aurora, erupted from his mouth. At the same time, boosted gear activated, doubling his power. Luo Yu pierced through the storm barrier with a single blow. He instantly plunged into the depths of the ancient battlefield. He hovered in midair, looked down, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. The scene below was even more exaggerated than the wall of storms outside. As his gaze swept across, the vast land was piled high with corpses and bones. Angels, devils, dragons, fallen angels, yokai, layered one upon another, dense and packed, making one's scalp tingle. Ordinary hills are made of stone, but the mountains here, whether tall or short, dozens or hundreds of feet high, were all built from flesh and bone. Corpses piled into mountains, bones stretched across the land. And that was just the beginning. Blood had long since soaked the black earth beneath. Grabbing a handful of damp soil and clenching his fingers, blood would drip down through the gaps. The air was thick with the scent of blood, heavy enough to choke. Luo Yu took a breath and felt his nasal cavity sticky, as if coated with a layer of blood. He muttered to himself. The Great War. People who haven't seen such a scene can never understand the weight of those 4 words. That was carved out by countless lives. Luo Yu landed on the ground. He discovered that some of the corpses here had weathered for thousands of years, long rotted into bone fragments that shattered at a touch. But there were also some corpses that looked as if they had just died, with skin and expression still intact. This had to do with strength. Those with strong power, especially at the Mao class, it's normal for them not to rot for 1,000 years. It seems those who died here aren't just from the time of the war. Luo Yu noticed that some corpses had not experienced such long years of erosion. Most were devils. He thought about it and understood. After the Great War, most pure-blooded devils in the underworld had died, and many of the 72 pillar families had lost their legacy. The mixed-blood descendants of those pure-blood nobles must have come to the ancient battlefield looking for things left behind by their ancestors. They just didn't make it out alive. Luo Yu swept his gaze across the battlefield, and his heart turned cold. This place was by no means a safe zone. There were corpses everywhere, lying helter-skelter, their blood soaking the soil into a dark crimson. The weak simply had no right to live. He was just about to turn and leave, to go to the so-called place where the god fell. Suddenly, in the dead silence of the ancient battlefield, a war horn suddenly blasted. Woo! Woo! Doom doom doom. The ground began to shake, shaking more and more violently. Those mountain-like piles of remains collapsed with a clatter, just like an avalanche. Following that, the remains of devils, fallen angels, yokai, and dragon species, all opened their eyes. Their eyes glowing red. They climbed up from the ground, gathering in greater numbers. In the blink of an eye, they formed a dark, overwhelming army that covered the sky, blocking it out completely. Hurry! Go to the holy mountain where the god fell. Didrake's voice was as urgent as if his tail were on fire. The scent of a living being on you has awakened the remaining soul fragments. These guys aren't strong individually, but there are just too many of them. Luo Yu looked at the sea of red before him, his scalp tingling. He immediately activated his balance breaker. Boosted gear instantly erupted with blinding red light. The body of the holy light dragon suddenly expanded to over 50 jong, its scales dyed deep red layer by layer. The 9 crimson dragon holy sword behind him appeared simultaneously, and his aura soared directly to the peak of Super Devil King class. Go! Luo Yu did not hesitate at all. The 9 giant swords instantly transformed into meteors trailing fiery tails, smashing fiercely into the thousands of troops blocking his path. Boom! Those fallen angels, and devils who had been dead for thousands of years, were instantly turned to ash in the scorching white light, drifting away into the air. Luo Yu had no intention of lingering in battle. He twisted his body, transforming into a red aurora, and charged out through the opening he had just torn. A second later, and those endless legions would have blocked it up again. They accumulated in this ancient battlefield. Even if he stood still and let him kill them, he wouldn't be able to finish them all. The red aurora that Luo Yu had become shuttled back and forth through the ancient battlefield. The scent of a living being on him was like a magnet, awakening more from their slumber. Those gathered in greater numbers, forming an overwhelming tide that pursued him relentlessly. He ran for a full 10 minutes. A mountain appeared before Luo Yu's eyes. It was completely different from the mountains of corpses around it. This mountain was made entirely of white jade, radiating a holy light. That holy aura was astonishingly rich, far exceeding that of the 4 seraphs of heaven. We're here. Without Didrake needing to say it, Luo Yu knew this was the place where the god fell. The appearance of this white jade mountain was forcefully reshaped by the residual power of the god. The tide chasing behind him slowly dissipated completely once it entered the range of the white jade mountain. Luo Yu landed on a giant rock on the mountain, looked around, and nodded with satisfaction. Such a dense holy power. If I can absorb it all, it will be more than enough to push me to the Super Devil King class. Partner, don't be too happy yet. This mountain is a treasure trove for cultivation, yes, but it's also a death trap that devours people whole. Take a look at the foot of the mountain. At Didrag's words, Luo Yu noticed several angel corpses lying helter-skelter at the foot of the mountain. All of them were of the 3-wing level or higher. But the strange thing was, the color of those wings was wrong. They weren't the pure white an angel should have, nor the pitch black of a fallen angel, but rather a gray in between. The shades of gray were different. The weaker the strength, the whiter the color. The stronger the strength, the closer it was to black. Luo Yu frowned. These are all fallen angels. He smelled a foul aura, which hadn't dissipated even from the corpses. Correct. Those are the fools who coveted the power of the God of Light. Mixed within the power left by the God of Light is a significant amount of his own will. Anyone who dares to absorb that power is practically swallowing poison. Absorb too much, and you won't even be able to keep your own sense of self. In the end, they were all converted by the residual will of the God of Light. The same fate as these fallen angels on the ground. Luo Yu looked down at the boulder beneath his feet. This thing also contained a lot of the God of Light's power. Didrag continued. Partner, you have 2 paths now. First, use the boosted gear to refine that power into the purest light elements, and then absorb it. The effect, as I told you, won't compare to top-tier holy lands like the Mirror Lake of Light, but it won't be far off. But you have another choice. Absorb the power left by the God of Light directly. If you can truly withstand it and digest this power, the benefits you'll gain are beyond your imagination. Didrag left the choice to Luo Yu. Power or safety? For others, this question might require some hesitation. But for Luo Yu, there was no choice at all. He had always believed in one thing. The greater the danger, the greater the opportunity. Just like when he risked his life for dragon reincarnation, a 9 deaths and 1 life situation, which earned him the potential to surpass the god and devil races in one stroke. Later, he went to snatch and refine the source dragon soul of Apophis, the primordial dragon of darkness, that was even more dangerous than dragon reincarnation. But the benefits he gained in the end were enough to make the top 10 strongest in the world go crazy with envy. So how could Luo Yu possibly pass up the power right in front of him? Just absorb it directly. But don't absorb too much the first time. The more you absorb, the heavier the will contained within will be. Didrag reminded him. He was not surprised by Luo Yu's choice at all. Having known him for nearly 10 years, he knew him better than anyone. Luo Yu is a madman who sometimes dares to do anything for power. Luo Yu's expression remained calm, but the madness hidden beneath his silence was something few could truly see through. He lowered his dragon head and opened his large mouth wide. A suction force, like a vortex appearing out of thin air, frantically pulled at everything around him. Within that giant jade stone, wisps of holy aura were extracted and poured into his mouth. A layer of pale, holy radiance suddenly surfaced in his dragon eyes. Layer upon layer of illusion slowly unfolded before him. He felt as if he were standing on the highest point of the 9th level of heaven, with countless angels kneeling at his feet, worshipping him. The scepter waved, holy light broke the dawn, and the radiance spread across the 3 realms. Distant hymns faintly sounded in his ears, believers praised him loudly, wanting to elevate him to the position of the one true God. Countless races prostrated themselves on the ground, offering loyalty and worship. Just then, the abyss split open. Countless devils poured out from the cracks in the earth, blood stained the land red, and slaughter swept across everything. Luo Yu was about to get angry, preparing to rain down holy fire to burn these filthy things to ash. But suddenly, a strong warning signal came from the depths of his soul. He just wanted to investigate closely. The angels worshipping him. The devils slaughtering. The solemn heaven. The praises of the believers. Everything collapsed in an instant, like a mirage, dissipating piece by piece before his eyes. That was close. Luo Yu suddenly broke free from the illusion and looked at the ancient battlefield filled with blood and slaughter before him, finally letting out a sigh of relief. It was truly too dangerous. If not for the crisis alert from his source dragon soul, he might still be trapped in the illusion right now. The longer it lasts, the more dangerous it becomes. The fallen angels at the foot of the mountain, eroded by the power of the fallen god, are living examples. To be able to wake up so quickly, you're not bad. Diedrag's voice sounded in his mind. The previous hosts of the boosted gear, just like you, thought about refining the power of the fallen god. And the result? One after another, they were completely lost and eventually became walking corpses. The power left by the fallen god is indeed terrifying. Furthermore, there is the residual aura of the first generation four great demon kings mixed in, making this poison that leads people astray even more potent. Luo Yu said, still shaken. The endless devils in the illusion were the manifestation of the power of the first generation four great demon kings. If he had truly raised the scepter and led the angels to fight them, he would have been completely trapped in a reincarnation-like illusion, never to wake up again. At this moment, he finally understood why Diedrag had told him to go to the mirror lake of light in heaven at the beginning, instead of coming here. Without the protection of the source dragon soul, relying solely on his own ability, he would never have been able to withstand this kind of illusion. However, this danger seems worth it. Luo Yu discovered that the holy power within his body had surged by a significant amount, almost half a level. This was already quite terrifying. That's the end of part 2. Part 3 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching my video. Please like and share it.